for being here. As you know, I am a nerd, so I have a lot of deep dive discussions with people, and some of those people let me share some chat time with you. We don't do introductions or big entry biography readings here. But check the caption because sometimes my guest wants or needs knowledge about what they're doing, and other times they want to share a story and not get public hate. Anyway, here we go. Let's hash it out.
Now, this is a whole conversation with you through Grok. Is that what it is?
Yeah, it's kind of an extended conversation, but it starts with I give it a timeline and some thoughts, then it gives me some feedback, then I clarify it, which I say, I have to kind of tell it like, I mean, just to give you an idea, I'm like, I don't think I don't think that, like, I don't think I'm not saying it's that nefarious. I'm not saying people are planning deaths or anything like that. AI is going a little bit like sideways on it. So
Yeah.
I get to the last one and it says, so this is what it proposes that I say given the timeline. So I've basically just given it the timeline and said, the one that I showed you, it just said this state, this state, this state, this state with a little bit of context. So now this, I'm just going to read it since we're doing it this way. And it might not be the thing to post, but it might be exactly the thing to post. I don't know. We can do, but this is what AI gives me back. And let me just make sure because I think that's the last. This is the last. So this is not what I would post, but this is the last take on it from AI. It says, title, the timing around Emma Catherine, Madison Claire's, and my own story, some context that raises questions. So I wouldn't even title it that way, but that's what it's saying. So it's proposing to me to say it like this. And my instructions were, I wanted to be accurate. I wanted to be helpful. I wanted to document what happened, but in a way where it can be received without causing unnecessary drama. And then a little bit
Yeah.
more of the context was like, look, I understand that this is a hard thing to talk about, and I don't want to be disrespectful. But on the other hand, if I know things and it's in a survivor community, then they should know the truth. So help me tell the truth in a way that's not going to be unfair or cause unnecessary drama or problems. Kind of know what I mean?
Yeah, that's a
I'm
good,
basically
yeah.
saying, how do I say this thing that's difficult to talk about, but really needs to be a part of the conversation? Otherwise, people might think that Emma's honest. Is basically what I'm saying. So
Oh, right.
how AI proposes that I say what I kind of gave it up for review, basically. So it says, from my perspective, it's telling me to write. I've stayed mostly quiet about this, but after recent events, I feel a responsibility to share the basic timeline of what happened with my own interview on the Emmapreneur. Is that how you say it? I don't even know. Emma's
Yeah,
podcast,
Emmapreneur.
Madison Claire's, and then parenthetically it says Cups, last name, and how it overlapped with a very tight congressional race involving my neighbor, Dave Mint. I'm not suggesting anyone orchestrated anyone's death. I wouldn't put that, but that's what it's saying. I wouldn't put it like that. I mean, hopefully that would go without saying, but anyway,
I would
that's
just
what
leave
it
it at orchestrating. Like, I'm not saying there's anything orchestrated. I'm just saying, look at the dots that are here. It kind of proves itself.
Yeah, it'd probably be a better way to put it. And it says, understand the nature of the stories Emma platforms mean tragic outcomes can happen. But I do find it noteworthy how guests are used to build the platform, both while alive and again after they die, while getting little or nothing in return. And I know from direct personal experience that Emma has lied to and about me, even while holding the keys to many important testimonies. That firsthand knowledge creates a moral obligation for me to speak up as a warning. I mean, it's accurate, and
Moral
you can,
obligation.
yeah, I mean, and that, it's not like I'm asking Grok what I should think about it. I'm telling Grok that I feel that way. So how do I explain that in a way that's, minimally helpful, knowing that, there'll be people kind of who have something negative to say about it, of course. So then it just says,
Everybody's got something negative, but the truth has to be put out there, right? And the truth isn't out there when you say the truth and somebody responds with, stop harassing me. The truth is not harassment. I'm sorry you feel that way. Like,
yeah, no, exactly. I mean, and it would even be the truth if I said, on this date, this effing happened, and on this date, this effing happened, and F them all
don't.
because
You do
this
it
happened.
nicely.
I try to, but even that would still be the truth. You might be like,
Yeah,
that's contemptible and awful the way that he's speaking, but, still facts, But anyway,
right.
so then it says, here's the timeline with relevant context. So it's going to go from November 2023 to December 2024. So this takes place over a year, basically. But the timeline gets really short in September 2004. So it goes like this. November 4th, 2023, Emma records my interview. So, we talked. Now, a little bit more. That's what it says. She asked me if I would do it. I didn't ask her. I told her, sure, yeah, of course. So that was November 4th. Then November 16th, she premieres the interview. So, big thing. I'm in the chat. People are talking. I don't think it was huge, but, there were 100 plus people at least live, listening to it. And I was chatting with some of them. It's all good. And we know each other at that point online. We haven't really talked except for to prepare for the interview, but we know each other online and have for some time. November 4th, it records, or 16th, it premieres all the way. So jump all the way to August 14th, 2024. So this is almost a year later. This is about 10 months later, 300 days. Emma records Madison Clare's first public interview. Okay, so August 14th, the next year, she records Madison Clare's first public interview. Then 15 days later, so mine, she premiered 12 days later. After it was recorded, Madison Clare's, she broadcasts, or she premieres 15 days later. So this is normal. This is August 29th. Oh, hold on. I misspoke.
It's okay.
I should just read here. You know what? I'm just going to read. I'm going to do this without my commentary. I'm going to just start over.
Okay.
So I mean, you can keep that in, but I think that it'd be more helpful if I did it like this. November 4th, 2023, Emma records my interview. November 16th, the interview premieres on her podcast. And about 10 months later, August 14th, 2024, Emma records Madison Clare's first public interview. August 29th, so 15 days later, Emma's husband, Gray, who has publicly described himself as a former assassin, I took those claims seriously, blows up my DMs. I'm just reading what Grok wrote. September 5th, so this is less than a week later, or about a week later, Emma deletes my interview, deletes it. And then 2 days after that, Emma begins heavy promotion of her interview with Madison Clare's and premieres it on the 9th. So 7th, 8th, 9th, Emma's promoting the interview, and then it premieres on the 9th. So just, starting a couple of days after she deleted my interview. And then later that month, September 2024, 16 days after premiering Madison Clare's, the Washington Post wrote an article about my neighbor, Dave Min. And so, like it says, my neighbor Dave Min tells the Washington Post he's behind in the polls, but preparing for his race to be decided by just a few votes, and that it could determine control of the U.S. House of Representatives. So that's an article that was published in the Washington Post. So he ends up winning that election, but in September, so when the same month that Emma deletes my interview, premieres Madison Clare's, is the same month that my neighbor, who's running for Congress, is in a race that's so close it could be decided by a few votes, and is so consequential it could decide control of the House of Representatives.
So if anything were to have been spoken that were interesting in his area, that could have been a deciding factor.
For sure, yeah. My story as a public whistleblower at UC Irvine, so it's directly connected to Dave Min, could affect that election. I mean, did whistleblowers affect Eric Swalwell's campaign for California governor?
Good question.
Yeah. So this isn't salacious in the same way, but it involves professors, involves the Wendy Miller murder, involves a lot of things.
If it got the wind it needed, it would have been enough to make some discussion about Irvine and stuff like that.
Right.
In plenty of places, it could have swayed a vote or two, at least. Yeah.
Or 1,000.
Right.
It could have. We don't know because it didn't happen. But at the time, you could say like, well, I think he ended up winning by at least not a comfortable margin. Well, that'll come up here. But the state of mind at the time was he's behind in the polls, and this is really important. So, it's not like people don't know about it. Emma might not have known about it. But
They can't let
people,
anybody know about the fact that wasn't it his wife that was at the event with Wendy Miller before she passed away too?
yeah, well, so his wife, who's also a professor of law at UC Irvine, co-hosted an event with Wendy Miller, who was the best advocate for children in the United States, who didn't pass away. She was executed. That was what they first printed in the paper. She was murdered, is what happened.
Execution style.
Yeah, nobody talks about it here, but and then just finishing it out really quickly. So that's September 25th. Then, October, run up to the election. The election's November 5th. Who won? Too close to call. They didn't announce it that night. So it wasn't until 8 days later, November 13th, AP projected Dave Min the winner of the race. So it was that close. Then November 26th, the OC registrar certified Dave Min as the winner. And then December 13th, the California Secretary of State certified the results along with all of the other results. And now he's in Congress. So now he's voting on things like the Epstein files.
Yeah, he was
Or,
actually just not too long ago up there talking about it was within the last 3 months when Clinton was being deposed. He
Mhm.
said, "We have to be very careful pulling these charges against a former president. We have to be very careful. This is very dangerous territory saying that Clinton was involved in all of this stuff." And then the next day all of the Democrats are saying, "President Trump, he needs to we need to pull him. He needs to be." Because so it was interesting that we're not allowed to question a president, but because they don't like Trump and they're working against him, we're allowed to question a president the next day. And
right.
that was specifically Dave Min in Congress. They shared a lot of clips about him saying that about Clinton.
Well, yeah, and I wasn't aware of that. But like the things I'm talking about and the things I'm concerned with would be equally true if you were a Republican and doesn't really, and it's kind of whether he's right on policy or not, or your cup of tea, anybody's cup of tea or not. It doesn't really matter as far as this goes. So like there's no politic, like even if he agreed
Like
with every
bipartisan
single.
issues.
Yeah, if he was my perfect representative, like whatever he thought and voted on is exactly how I think and what I would vote on, it's still not right because
Mm,
it doesn't even make it a little bit better in my mind. It's a problem, and especially like in this context. So that's the
right.
timeline. And then how about if I continue reading? And I'm going to try to do it without additional commentary. So that other than just to remind again that this is a draft that Grok is giving me feedback, trying to give me feedback about how to say what I want to say, which ultimately I'll decide, but it's good feedback because I know that tone is so important here. So anyway, it says after the timeline, it proposes that I would write something like this. Some important context most people don't know. And then what we were talking about. Min is married to Jane Stover, UCI law professor and director of the UCI Initiative to End Family Violence. Jane co-hosted a major UCI law event on April 5th, 2019, where I first met my advocate, Wendy Miller. Just 15 days later, on August 20th, 2019, Wendy was murdered in Newport Beach. The time I found it tragic, what became suspicious to me in the years afterward was the complete radio silence from UCI and the people involved. No memorials on campus, no public tributes to her work as a prominent domestic violence advocate and psychologist, no promises to continue what she started, just nothing. The exact opposite of what you would expect. Emma and her husband later used my connection to Elizabeth Loftus, a UCI professor and my neighbor, as a pretext to attack me. This was striking because Emma and I had already discussed Loftus in detail beforehand, and I had hoped to use material from some of my own interviews to confront Loftus, the exact opposite of what they claimed. In reality, Loftus is just one of roughly 100 UCI professors who know important aspects of my case. Many others know significantly more. I have receipts for all of this. And then it says optional if you want to include the Jobs-Wozniak tie-in. Separately, my own case has direct connections to Steve Jobs and Steve Wozniak, co-founders, in ways that I haven't fully published yet. A 1983 newspaper article featured me at 15 in this context, and then the link. And then Madison's allegations centered heavily on Jobs, which makes the timing of the deletion and pivot even more notable. So then that's that. And then the final section is it entitles my experience with Emma. She recorded a long interview with me, premiered it, then deleted it without explanation right as she pivoted hard to promoting Madison Clare's episode. I have the receipts, and then parenthetically, deletion notice, DMs from her husband, timestamps, etc. I know she has platformed many true and important stories. That doesn't change the fact that she lied to and betrayed me personally. When someone does that to you, it changes how you view the rest of the operation. Madison Clare's recent tragic death and Emma's very public defense of her credibility against the family's narrative just brought all this back into focus. I'm not here to create drama. I'm here to lay out facts and timing as I experience them because I believe people have a right to see the full picture, especially when high-profile interviews, political races, and tragic outcomes intersect this closely. If you've followed Emma's work, judge for yourself. If you want any of the receipts I referenced, just ask. I have them. My only goal is transparency so others aren't caught off guard the way I was. And then
Yeah.
so that's what it proposed, which, I mean, isn't that interesting?
That's interesting that it would look at it from that perspective. I've noticed that AI tends to take that's a conspiracy, you're overthinking, don't look at it from that perspective, and it didn't seem to.
But that was the last one. No, it starts off very much that way, though, just like what you said. It doesn't, I'll go back a little bit. It doesn't start off that way. Like the first stuff it's giving me is stuff that is more like what you're talking about.
Yeah.
It's telling me, and it's not all unfair, but like, I'm like, what do you think about this timeline? So I gave it the timeline, and then I said, this is what I wrote. I put a note at the end of the dates that said, this is the seat in Congress that Katie Porter gave up to run against Adam Schiff in the Senate, which is interesting, but it took that out. But if I had reiterated it as super important, it would have put it in. And I wrote that, and then I said, would Dave Min had won if all the accounts with which I'd built relationship were blasting the fact that Dave Min's neighbor is Elizabeth Loftus, that he asked me what I thought we should do when Wendy Miller was missing, that his wife Jane Stover co-hosted the big event at UC Irvine where I met Wendy, who became my advocate, who was murdered hours after planning my case. Weird how people Emma interviews keep dying while she's protecting everyone from me. So that was what I wrote originally. So Grok basically says,
Cleaned it up a lot.
well, but we had to go through a bunch of steps. So, like the first, it's like the timeline you laid out does show some striking coincidences and timing, but and then it goes on to say like, seriously, like, I mean, it's talking about, let's see, like the dying pattern, is no good. It talks a lot about Loftus, where I have to say like, she's just one of a bunch, stick to verifiable public facts. I mean, it's giving me a lot of like pushback on what I wrote. Like basically, don't do that. And then I had to write back clarifications. I don't think Emma's orchestrating deaths, and I understand that a death is able to be anticipated given the volume of people she interviews and the nature of her guest situations. Still, it's a heck of a thing to use people to build a platform, then use them again when they die, when the people she interviews don't get anything in the exchange. Whether Dave Min ultimately won the vote, totals aren't nearly as probative about how the race was considered at the times we're talking about. That's why the Washington Post article is so important. So that was where it was saying, like, he won by 1,000 votes. What are you talking about? It wasn't a close race. So I'm like, it doesn't matter. At the time, they're thinking this is a close race. So I'm having to explain it to Grok. I think Grok gets it and gets it back to me. Dave Min is married to Jane Stover, who co-hosted the big event with. So I have to tell more of this because it's saying like they convicted somebody else that had nothing to do with it. Is what I'm saying.
Right. It pulls all the available details and showcases a narrative that doesn't really make sense.
Yeah. But I mean, I had to go back with a lot just to get that. So that's what I meant. Like it's reflecting it back, but it's not like I'm saying, hey, how can I tell this in a way that's going to get clicks? I'm saying like, how do I, I say,
oh, right. Yeah.
It was suspicious because of the timing. Nobody from UCI talked about it. That's why it's so suspicious. It's the opposite of what you would expect, and then what you would expect. And then it's saying, it was also telling me, like, you can't say that stuff without receipts. So I'm saying, as far as receipts go, I have tons of them for everything I say. It's not like it's a problem. It's a problem of which ones to produce, if any. There's so many.
Well, yeah.
And I say, look, I'm the one telling the truth here. I don't feel like it's incumbent upon me to produce anything for what it's worth. I don't want to contribute to the drama. I going on and on like sentences, like how I feel, what I want to say, where I'm coming from, what's wrong, and then it's like given all that, I want to lay down the basic timeline, the facts. Then it gives me one that's much better, but even still, then I say, this is good, but at least one thing's wrong and one thing's missing. And I say the August interview is with Madison, not me. So it got like, that was a super basic fact wrong.
Right. Well,
And then
didn't Wendy die in April, not August? I think you said August on there.
she died in, yeah, April 5th. I might have
Yeah.
misspoke though. I might
Oh,
have
okay.
misspoke because I don't think that was wrong in the last one, but it's possible. Look, I don't think that was wrong, but like that was wrong. And then I say like, you did give me the idea that maybe I should include when she recorded. That's what I was saying. It was saying the August 15th interview was with me, which was not right at all. Mine was, like way before. And then I said, but that's an idea. I should say like when mine was recorded or when hers was recorded, like maybe I should do that. And then also, Elizabeth Loftus is not the other professor. She's one of 100 professors or so who know important aspects of my case. It's important because it shows how everyone here knows it, but I have receipts for that too. Otherwise, the draft is good. Please revise it with these changes in mind and with this additional information. And then I think, well, no. And then even now, and then Elizabeth Loftus section needs to be clarified. I think it should probably be included because it was pretext. It was the pretext for what both Emma and her husband used to attack me. But the problem is, Emma already knew about Elizabeth Loftus. We talked about it together, and I'd hoped to confront Loftus with some of Emma's interviews. So this is somewhere where it was not exactly, I didn't mean like to confront her in a way like, hey, you're an evil person that, helped like, and it kind of read that way. So that would be like something I would fix even from that draft I read to you. It'd be more like I want to confront her with the fact that like, hey, you said all of this stuff in the 80s and 90s and whatever. And I hear you. Because I'm going to give you the benefit of the doubt there for the sake of talking about it. But there are all these interviews, and we're in 2026, and that's not a good take anymore. Would you like to talk about it? Because it's your legacy. I mean, ultimately, you're on the wrong
Oh,
side of
right.
it, but you do have a way to explain it. You can say, look, I wasn't a lawyer. I was a hired person, and people were hiring me, and I'm talking about the science, not the people. And she can make her case, and then people can be persuaded or not. That's what I meant by confront. And then I also say, also, my case is connected to Steve Jobs in this way, which I hadn't mentioned to AI at all. So then that's where it gets added in at the end. Anyway, it goes on, and I think the one I got after that, I think is the one that I read, which is close, but not even a final draft, even still. So I just telling you all of that to say, I think AI can be useful, but it's not like I asked it and then I went, well, it was a good answer. It was a bad answer. It's like, okay, I got
That's
ideas.
almost. Go ahead. Sorry.
Well, I mean, I treated it as like a collaborative process where I'm dealing with this not human machine that will do some things really well and other things maybe not as well or not the way I think. And then so I try to give it the prompts, the information iteratively. Like, I take it and then I feed it back, and then I take it and then I feed it back to get to a point like, where can I get to with this? And in this case, it was pretty helpful because, one of the frustrations with it is like the common denominator stuff or conventional wisdom where it won't tell you things that are very insightful at first, or that's my experience. It'll just tell me what Wikipedia will tell me, but it'll do it faster and with more sources. But that's not always going to be right, either because it's missing facts or I look at it differently. Whereas the case here, I have facts that are firsthand, that are way more detailed and particular than anything that's out there that can be researched. But I can use that to get as far as I can get to with it. And because it's based on conventional wisdom, it can be a pretty good test for how things will play to a general audience because they're going to be basically where Wikipedia is as well.
Well, right. And that's exactly what I was thinking, because it seems like the AI is allowing you to put things together, but it's grasping things on the concept of how humans do. I can grasp this much
Hmm.
of it and I'm going to make a whole perspective on it. But then you forgot this piece. Oh yeah, that changes
Right.
my whole perspective. Okay, let me rewrite. So now my whole perspective is this. Oh
Exactly.
wait, you messed that one detail up and that rearranges the whole thing. Like that's the piece you got to pay attention to. It's
Right.
almost like the AI attention span is like our ADHD squirrel, and you
Hmm.
have to keep it on focus. Otherwise, it's not going to have common sense and it's not going to stay in line. It's just going to work off what the last word was it read. And that's not exactly helpful. That's a lot like talking to the general public when you're trying to, like, if you're a high stakes whistleblower and you start saying, yeah, but there's this and this and this and this and this and this and this, the general public just kind of goes, hold on.
Hmm.
what? And I
Right.
think AI kind of does that too. And they're like, no, here's the truth. And it spins everything
Yeah.
out. I find myself having to stop it and say, no, wait, you're misunderstanding
Mhm.
here, very often.
Exactly. And it's almost like it has to be that way by definition, because, if you're a whistleblower, then you're saying the main thing going on, like the
Not
institution and
true.
the institutional knowledge and the conventional wisdom about it, and what's widely reported and what's peer reviewed, what's accepted as
Yeah.
true. As a whistleblower, you're kind of saying, look, I have a foot in it, or I did, I have a foot in it, which you don't. So I know things inside that you don't know. Now, on the other hand, I have a foot outside of it, where I'm saying I'm coming away from this in-group, out-group thing, this place where I was an insider, and I'm speaking to you about things that you need to know because they're, and if it's whistleblowing, they're not right for whatever reason. They're secret when they
Right.
should be public, illegal when it should be legal, it's against policy when it should be consistent with policy, whatever it is, I'm blowing the whistle, but I'm blowing the whistle about the thing that everybody thinks is a certain way, or the official narrative. And
Yeah.
AI is always going to be giving you the official narrative. So if you're a whistleblower trying to use AI, it doesn't mean you can't use it, but you really need to hold that
You're going to get
context. Even
disheartened.
you could be disheartened, right? Because you can direct
It
it
doesn't
in
know what
ways,
you
and you
know.
can ask questions for it to be helpful. But yeah, I mean, its starting point is going to be the like if you're whistleblowing about an institution, its starting point is going to be what's publicly accepted as true about that institution. And then you're trying to tell something that's a little bit different from it. And then another thing too is with AI, it's super powerful and it can do lots of things that you just can't do otherwise, that are either really hard or impossible to do otherwise. And especially if it has to do with like speed, like compiling
Yeah,
stuff, like you could actually theoretically do some things, but to replicate it, it might take you days or months if you look at what it's
exactly.
able to do. But on the other hand, so when I was at University of Michigan, which was a while ago now, they were that Google had funded a project to go into some of the major university libraries and digitize everything that they had
Yeah.
there. And so they did that there, and they did that in other places. And then they capture all that information. But that's just some information out of the whole of the information. So there's all kinds of things that have been published that aren't in university libraries that are important. Then they take some of that information that they digitized, not all of it. I don't even think most of it. They take some of it, and then they use that to inform AI. Like that's
Yeah.
part of what they train it on, as like what and then you take some of that, and then that's kind of like the whole, like at then that is what constitutes quote unquote everything. You know what I mean? And so it's
That's why
just,
it's interesting to talk to the different models after you've published or put in their
Mhm.
different learning manuals. Like if you're like, here, study this book, and this book, this is what your premise is, and then talk to me about this. It's a
Right.
lot different than if you just plug and play questions on their own leashed program. It's very, and then I know that that's why a lot of people were mad when ChatGPT updated and took out the old models, because the old models, you had a lot of your programmed in resources, and the new ones are just critical thinking on their own plug and play type, infrastructure. And so I think that's interesting too, because when AI was working for us, they changed it so it can't. When AI was working well and it was putting things together, they changed it so that it would gaslight you more, and it would put up more
Right.
leashes and more walls and say, that's a conspiracy, even though last week it told you, yeah, that's actually really interesting. Here's a name, here's a name, here's a name, here's a name. But this week it doesn't know, and that
Right.
doesn't even happen. And
Hmm.
so I think using AI as a whistleblower, you're right. It can be a good tool, but you have to have your feet in, some grounded faith somewhere in your understanding, because it will gaslight you.
Right.
It will tell you what you know is true is not true. For instance, you're talking about a case. I looked up a case that I was a part. I was on the outside of it. I knew pretty much every detail known to man of this case, and I'm probably, of three people, the third
Hmm.
person that only knows these details. But there's a
Right.
lot of publicly available information, and I asked without giving it anything. I said, what do you know about this? Number one, it didn't know anything. Then I was like, well, look up this state. Then it found it and said this was wrong and said this wasn't even happening. Didn't know who this person was, even though there are articles about what this person did and got in trouble for. And there's just so many lies, and it's all publicly available information. So I was just watching what it could tell of a true story that I knew. It knew nothing, and it totally rewrote the whole narrative and basically lied about 2 or 3 different things.
Right.
And so then I was like, but wait. And I sent it a news article. What do you think about this? And it's like, that changes everything. That news article was published 15 years ago. You didn't seem to find it, but I did. Like, why am I better than AI's research tools?
Right.
So I think we need to, as a whistleblower, you need to keep in mind it's programmed by somebody that doesn't want us to know these things already. So yeah, it can be fast and it can be good and it can be great. But as soon as I've asked it specifically, why will you tell me about this? But as soon as I bring up this topic, you put a leash, and it'll tell me, well, I've been programmed to not give into conspiracy type theories and blah, 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 blah. And I said, this is a published article with real facts. What about this is labeled as a conspiracy to you? And then it has to tell me why it's decided that I'm a conspiracy theorist. And it's honestly, when you watch its thinking process, it goes, I have to be very careful here how I word things.
Yeah, I
Like it's
know.
talking to a mental patient. I'm like, hold on. What the heck, man? So
Yeah.
AI is great, but you have to be the handler because it will handle you 1,000 different ways if you let it, I think,
Yeah, and I think I mean there may be no way to like really take out all of like the danger that goes with using it, but there might be. But you can I think you can avoid almost all of it if you like hold context the whole time. Like so like one of the things it does more than I do is it esteems like titles, right? So if a
Yeah.
someone with a PhD or a professor of something says something, then it will hold that as, like more, like I'm talking generally, like more valuable than I would. So I would think like depending on what the case is, I might think like, well, yeah, but who's funding this research?
Yeah.
Or why now? Or, that kind of thing, where it doesn't do that usually quite as well. And then just the whole idea of I mean, same thing with like the conviction, like in the Wendy Miller case, it was like really persuaded by the fact that there had been a conviction, which I mean, I get it, but also that wasn't even what was making it so suspicious. I had to explain like the context or even like the election that we were talking about. It was saying like, maybe not that big a deal because turned out maybe it wasn't that close. It was like, well, that didn't matter because what mattered was the state of mind at the time. And then even all of that, then that's interesting to me, right? I'm thinking, well, it's getting better, but it's still having a hard time understanding. I mean, a person who has the facts, if they're paying attention to what I'm talking about, or if they care about it and they know, they'll totally get it. Like, oh, it was a
Right.
close race. They won't think like, well, it turned out it wasn't close, because you'll think what it was like at the time.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, it's a tool.
Well,
And
you can lead a
also,
horse to water. You can't make them drink it. You can show them the facts, but you can't be like, this is what those facts mean.
yeah, I actually think that, and this is true for a lot of things, that like non-contradiction is like maybe if you just had one thing, one secular thing, that you were going to hold on to is like, this is going to help me discern, then that would be it. It'd be like, well, things make sense. So, and when they don't, you have a contradiction. And then that doesn't mean that contradictions exist. It means you haven't put that part of the puzzle together in a way that fits properly. Like you might have, but it turned out that wasn't the right piece. It seemed like it was the right shape, but it doesn't quite fit. So you have a contradiction. So like one would be, I was actually watching a documentary that Patrick Howley had done, an investigative reporter. It's really good, I thought. But he had in it a clip that I knew about. I didn't know anybody else who had publicized it. So I was actually happy to see it. But it was my friend Brianna from San Bernardino. And it was just this heartbreaking video where they take her baby at the hospital. San Bernardino police is there. And the dad is filming it saying, you can't do that. That's our baby, and they take the baby and it's in the video. Um, So hospitals help people, they help people stay alive. They help them with their health so that they're healthy. And one of the things that they do is they help moms deliver babies. And then, and the normal outcome is, the baby goes home with the mom. So why is it different in this case? What's going on? So you have two different things. You have hospitals are good, hospitals medical kidnap. That's a
Yeah.
contradiction. It's two different things. So you could say like,
And
well, you could say contradictions exist, but that's not satisfactory. It's like, what explains that scenario? What's going on? And then be like, well, what is going on? Is it because of money? Is it because of crime? Is it because of organ harvesting? Is it because of the adoption industry? People maybe don't want to talk about it, but there's an answer to that question. If you had perfect information, you would know what was going on there and what the essentials were, and we don't. So anyway, long way to say for whistleblowers, for other people, for anything when you're using these tools, I think like if I had just one thing, it would be like there aren't contradictions in reality. So when you run into them, Emma
something's not
platforms
real.
truth tellers that other people don't. So she's awesome in that regard. It's a valuable thing. And these testimonies are super helpful. Emma gaslights people, hypnotizes them, deletes interviews, and is running an agenda. Okay,
Fames them.
that's a contradiction. So, it's basically she's good, she's bad. What's the answer? Well, if you had enough information, you would be able to know that. You would know the truth of it. And you might, if you didn't know me, you might think, well, I'm lying about everything. And that would make it make sense or something else. And I happen to know that's not it because I'm myself. And so I have firsthand information about what happened. But whatever the answer is, it's something. Maybe she's essentially good, but somebody got to her. Maybe she does stuff for money. Maybe someone's got something they can hold over her head. Maybe she's being controlled by her so-called husband. I don't know.
Or her business entanglements. I know she's in the cannabis industry, and there's some entanglements in that in the trafficking world. So who knows?
Yeah, I
And I
know
don't want
people are.
anything bad to come to her because people talk bad about her podcast. I think, like I said, like you said, there's a lot of good that has come from the stories that have been platformed on her channel. But that doesn't mean that a psyop doesn't always have some good pieces for it to sit properly, right?
Yeah, in the same way that you could have a nutritious meal and you could say that this is a good meal, but if it has poison in it, you would
That's a
want to say, "Hey,
problem.
there's some poison in here." You know what I mean? You'd be like, "Well, I had a lot of good meals in the past." Be like, "Yeah, right. That's awesome, but watch
Yeah.
out for the poison. You want to know about it?" I mean, you'd be crazy if you said, "No, don't tell me about the poison. I know it's mostly healthy and I don't want to know about the poison."
Well, and you'd kind of be crazy if you heard a story like yours where, look, this is a high
Hmm.
stakes situation. There's a lot of players in here that make your story like a dangerous story.
Right.
And it's an interesting story from a reporter side. And it's an
You would
interesting
you
story
would
from a
think so.
podcaster side. Like it should be. It is. I find it is. A
Right.
lot of people find it is. I see the view count that you get on when you tell some stories. Like people are interested. But
Hmm.
there's a contrived narrative around it,
Hmm.
and that is very, very dangerous to be in control of because I think in a podcast setting like hers, and there's a lot of cult podcasts, so I'm not trying to isolate hers. And I don't know any of the
Hmm.
others specifically if they're good intentions, bad intentions, corrupt or not. I don't know.
Hmm.
I just know specifically that one because we were in it. But I think that there's something to holding that amount of power. You have to be responsible with that amount of power. If you're talking in these realms of conspiracies and whistleblowers and stuff, you have to be I guess, full of integrity into a point where you're not going to misuse their story that could hurt them.
Yeah, exactly.
And
And you
I'm
have to
not
be,
finding that is the case. Yeah.
well, you need to be transparent. And
Right.
deleting interviews is like the opposite. It doesn't get much more opposite than that. It's the equivalent. I mean, it's almost perfectly analogous to redactions in documents everybody's complaining about. I mean, she redacted a
Yeah.
3-hour interview, just wiped it
That
out.
had all the answers to everything people are saying about what your account is or whatever. Anything that people
Hmm.
question or posted up, all of that was already discussed before anything came up. So it's really
Right.
hard not to see that it's contrived, especially since I read that text message to you that I sent to her. I said, I'm not understanding how I don't feel safe in your network because they're
Hmm.
asking me to tar and feather somebody I met in your network that I know
Right.
for people that don't like this person and I don't know them. And so
Right.
now that are you fostering a community that's allowing that, right?
Yeah, well, and she never answered the question in a satisfactory way for her community. I mean, and so she lost some of it. I don't know how much, but she lost some people, and she probably caused a lot of other people to question her. So she, her credibility was diminished. But, in a larger sense, she's grown it to an extent to where she doesn't even have to answer that. Um, but she giving her, like, just if you stipulate, right, that what she's saying is true, so that I'm a bad person and I didn't tell the truth, then whatever, she protected people by deleting the interview after she published it, then
And
even
shared it
still.
and platformed it and cheered it on and reshared it and commented on it and made sure everybody saw it and tagged
Right.
you.
Right. So if you took her as, telling the truth about everything, then you would still be left with questions like, well, why delete it rather than leave it up? And if you did need to delete it and that was the right thing to do, then what's your explanation? So there's a lot of questions like, well, how did Brad fool you into interviewing him and publishing it? And how did he fool you? Into, like, promoting it, into complimenting him? How did he convince you to be an admin? Did he do anything? Did he sabotage? Did he trick? Did he do anything wrong as an admin? No, or was he trustworthy? And then there's more. You flipped from taking his position to saying that his wife was the real, victim. Have you tried to interview her?
Right.
Have you reached out to her? She's a public person. People Magazine, did an interview with her. She did a podcast with her Full House co-stars. I mean, that would be a big get for you. Like, have you even tried? What did she say? I mean, these are all things,
Precisely.
like, make it make sense. It doesn't make sense. She just
Otherwise,
wants
it
to.
doesn't. It doesn't make sense.
Yeah. And then if you take it from my perspective, then, because in my story, the whole thing with Emma, it's a problem, and it's especially a problem in the X community with what I was trying to do, but it's really a small part of my overall story. I mean, I have
Yeah.
people who, in their realms are like famous or distinguished or notable and with a lot of power in their own realms. Largely that's in higher education, but it's also in politics and also in big, big money, billionaires and real estate development. So it's kind of connected in a lot of ways to all of these things. All of these things, if you were trying to build a platform, you would think, well, that's huge. I mean, even in the case of Madison Claire's and the connection to Steve Jobs, that's a huge connection, and it was personal. But I mean, as far as like mine by comparison is different, but it's connected to lots of people, not just one, in kind of like a web of networks. And then also people don't appreciate higher education nearly that, like the importance of it in, especially in whistleblowing, as much as they should. And I think they do, but they don't really. And one way you know that is by the attention that, like, Epstein paid to universities and professors at universities in certain labs. So they were super important to him. He was wearing their sweatshirts. He was trying to get in their good graces. He was trying to get them to take money so that he could be connected to them in that way. Well,
All
where
their
am I?
research.
My ex-wife was a professor. I'm on a university campus. I'm surrounded by this stuff. So all to say, when Emma deleted the interview, when I found myself on the wrong side of her and it didn't make any sense, then as a person in the 3D world, in the real world, protecting children, and as a high stakes whistleblower, that let me know you're a target. You're in big danger. They killed somebody killed your advocate for whatever reason, and nobody talked about it, and nobody asked how you were, and nobody wondered how it affected you. Nobody wondered if it was traumatic. And when I talk about it on a platform where I finally get to someone who's willing to talk about those difficult things, because the LA Times is afraid of this story, or they have conflicts of interest. So does the OC Register, so does the TV news, so does the university. When I talked to a family court journalist, she totally betrayed me, and it had to do with another politician, Katie Porter. So I finally get to Emma, and I think, okay, well, I'm pretty much where Wendy got, which is you end up at crimes against children and trafficking and the legal system. And then I talk to someone who has a platform, who's willing to take on that kind of a story, and then she betrays me while she's platforming all of these super high stakes conspiracy theorists, supposedly, who are telling important truths, like Fiona Barnett and Kathy O'Brien, lots of different people she's talking to. But mine is the one that gets deleted. Well, that's really scary when it comes back to the real world, because I think, they're afraid of my story, not those. Like, aren't you afraid of Kathy O'Brien's story or somebody else's? Why is
Right.
mine the one you need to protect everyone from? And so what does that mean? And so to me, it means, well, my neighbor's running for the governor of California, and nobody wants to talk about my case, which involves crimes against children, online predation, right around the corner from her house. She knows about it. Our kids were on the same swim team. She used to walk in front of my house every single day. So it's a little bit scary, or it can be. I mean, I dropped my case. I dropped everything just because I got to a point where I was like, I really felt like if they're going to silence me one way or another, so maybe I'll just let them silence me like this so that I don't get killed
Right.
or worse,
Protection,
you know?
however you need to. A lot of whistleblowers find themselves having to silence for that reason.
Yeah, I don't want to find out, you know? Like
Right.
maybe I look crazy. Okay, I'll take my chances on crazy.
Not testing it.
Why aren't you practicing law? Well, because I don't want to die, I dropped my
Right.
case. Because I don't
Yeah.
have any evidence that people are interested in finding out the truth of the matter here, which is a really big deal. And if they're not, and it's opposite, then that's not very safe. So,
Yeah,
I
because you have
mean,
big dog players that have a lot of things on the line if they're found out to be in any way not on the up and up, I guess is a simple way to say it.
right. I don't have to be a big deal to be a big target. Like, say I'm just some random dude running a bar in London, but I happen to see, something compromising with, King William or whatever his name is, like he's doing something he shouldn't be doing with a kid or something, right? Well, I'm still a dude just, running a bar in London, right? But all of a sudden, if somebody knows that and that can't be known, well, I'm in big trouble. And then be like, well, you're no big deal. You're just a guy running the bar. Like they could say that about me. You're just some guy that's, talking about what happened to you on campus a while ago. And it's like, yeah, it's not, the problem isn't me, it's the people I know about is the problem.
Well, I don't know. I mean, is this now a good time for me to say, well, let's talk about Cielo Drive?
We can, yeah, and we can
Because
talk
that's
about it.
not in
We can talk
everybody's
about it
story, to be
later as
honest.
well.
Like, you're just a guy on campus and it's just a situation, but not everybody's wife was being recruited by somebody to be on a TV show that was staying in Cielo Drive, the house of the Manson murders, right? So,
Right, exactly. Was that where, did you see that picture we were talking about sharing a screen? Cielo Drive actually has to do with that 2016 email in a weird way.
yeah. Let me see if I can get this up here. So your
So
wife's
you
a
had asked,
professor on UCI campus, and in
Mhm.
2016, what had already happened at this point?
So at this point, she'd been reclusive for well over a year. And I was trying to help her, and we were raising three children. And then this has to do specifically about um, our three kids' school for the next year. So, it's April, it's getting near the end of the school year, and we're looking at next, August, September when they go back to school, 2017, 2018.
So
So
it's
she's a
almost towards the end
professor.
of the school year, and you're getting ready for the
Yeah.
next year. Okay.
Yeah, so this is a time that's particularly difficult. I've been trying to help her with physical injury and then a lot of psychological problems. And it was something that lots of people were aware of. So she hadn't been in the classroom for a long time. She'd been on extended medical leave. And then like in our home, she had been reclusive for over a year, which started with like severe depression and not really being awake a lot of the time and not getting out of bed. But by this point in April 2016, she was playing a lot of Minecraft online. That was all she was doing really, um, for hours on end. Behind a closed door for the most part in the master bedroom where she spent virtually all of her time, like pretty much all of her time. I think she maybe left the room when we were all gone sometimes to get food in the kitchen. But basically, she was up there, and then I was with the children on the other side of the door in the rest of the house. So that's what
So,
was
like,
going
just
on
to
about
pause
here.
there for a
Hmm.
second, you've got this is 10 years ago, April 4th, 2016. So I'm
Hmm.
assuming she was 30-ish. How old was she then? 35?
She was born in 1975,
Okay. So roughly
so
40, 41,
yeah.
something in there.
Hmm.
So as an adult, she was in a depressive state and playing Minecraft
Right.
as
And
41-year-old. I don't know many adults that do that that are in a healthy, especially as a PhD professor. Is that a normal pastime?
not the way she was doing it, especially. But I mean, professors will be like any other people. I mean, they'll play video games and stuff, and they'll even do it online. She was really obsessed and manic about it, and she was playing a lot with kids, so those things are different.
A lot of adults who play games. I'm not saying that, but they kind of laugh at me when I discuss Minecraft. It's kind of like if I bring up that, oh, I'm a gamer. I play Sims.
Mhm.
Mm, it's
Yeah.
kind of in that understanding. So Minecraft is, um, from my understanding, not really adult focused until you get into those secret libraries and stuff. I mean, there's definitely a lot of adults that go into those secret libraries, secret, communities and the just giant communities that are built and stuff. Like, I get that. But this just seems out of the realm of normal for a PhD professor at the time.
Yeah. And the way that it was presented was so it was the first thing she was doing socially. So when I say she was reclusive, I mean, she wasn't talking to anybody. So she was not leaving the home. She wasn't really leaving her room. Um, and so she wasn't talking to people in the real world, but she wasn't talking to anybody online either. She wasn't talking to anyone on the phone. She wasn't talking to people on the computer. She wasn't doing anything really for a while. And then this is probably a few months into she had started interacting with people, but only online. So only in and around Minecraft and maybe some other games, primarily Minecraft. Um, and not only that, I had gotten her to, so there were a lot of people who were concerned about her, and there were that wanted to help her, like get out of a rut, which is what it seemed like she was in. Like she was just stuck in a loop that she needed to get out of, like a psychological one. Um, and I'd finally found a psychologist she was willing to go to, which was really hard because and expensive because she wouldn't just go to anyone. She needed to go to somebody who she felt like was senior to her, and she was a psychology professor. So by her own way of estimating things, it was really hard to find someone that could help her. And then the person who could was a person that was more more distinguished and esteemed than she was by titles. And then what she said, well, and he said it too. So what they said, and by the way, the psychologist, his name's Dennis Greenberger. He wrote a multi-million bookseller called Mind Over Mood, and he's also adjunct professor at UC Irvine, I think in the med school.
Mm.
So kind of like a big shot, in that realm. Um, so anyway, his idea and their idea, their grand plan was to get her to practice interacting with people online, playing games, you know. So that was what was being told to me when she was up all night playing games with kids while I'm taking care of our children and she's ignoring them, was that this super expert psychologist was helping her. They were practicing interactions online. So that's like what she was doing. The rest of us were watching this thinking maybe that wasn't working or that something else was indicated because it looked like gaming addiction or something like that at the time. So that's the context
I have
for
a good
this.
face. I'm not really able to mimic or mock what I'm saying or thinking. I'm sorry, my face. I'm really confused at that. That doesn't make I'm sorry. You have a high level psychiatrist, a psychologist in that area of knowledge, and their idea is that we need to practice communication with real people in a game room, and then it
Yeah.
leads to what?
Well, yeah. So that was the plan. But to give you an idea, like she was not talking to anyone. So someone that was her best friend or one of her best friends, probably her best friend on campus, at least in the neighborhood, was our next door neighbor, Beth Kaufman, and she wouldn't even talk to her. Like I remember this one time. So Beth, maybe her husband at the time, Steve was there. I can't remember. But then our kids were all downstairs at our house having, we were having something to eat and like dinner, and Beth was trying to talk to Anne Marie just to engage her in some way. This would be about this time. And Anne Marie wouldn't answer it. And she was trying to like call her on the cell phone, like upstairs, and get her to answer it. So, I mean, she was that isolated and that reclusive. So, so it did
So then
seem
she
kind of
sends this email, right? Oh,
it
sorry.
did seem kind of crazy, but it was at least plausible from
Communicating.
where we were, which was like, well, at least she's talking to someone. And the first someone was this psychologist, actually. And then there was the gaming. But we've been increasingly worried about like the gaming because she was doing it like all night, like was
Are
doing
we
it
saying
when
that the psychologist was in the game room with her at first? That's how they were
no,
talking?
no, 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 no,
Oh,
no, no. No, because I found the psychologist was a recommendation from someone named Sonia Ramensky, who, by the way, that's one of the 100 professors. And then Sonia is a PhD, MD, and then she's also married to a professor, I think, of English. But anyway, they had two children, and I won't say their names, but they were friends of, so their son was friends with our oldest, and their daughter was friends with our daughter. And the two girls, so mine and hers, were like together the first line of defense on the little kids' soccer teams they played. So they played defense together. They were great. And we were friends, and I was the coach of a team that her child was on. So I mean, I knew her that way, and then she knew a bit about Anne Marie just because you know, psychologists that are parents who have friends in the neighborhood, and our kids were friends with each other. You get to know the parents, and then so she understood a little bit about what was going on in our home and recommended a particular psychologist, and then that was in fact Dennis Greenberger, who had a practice in her building because she
hmm.
was one of these people who so she had a clinical practice that was a part of her overall work as a professor. We've talked about how a lot of psychologists are just research psychologists at the university.
Yeah.
Only some of them are clinicians. So she was actually one who was a clinician. So she was a medical doctor and had a PhD in psychology. So a psychology psychologist. And then she also um, but as a professor, she was a research professor and then also a clinical psychologist. So it had, a lot going on. So that's Sonia Ramensky. She's a friend of mine. I mean, I haven't talked to her in a long time, but um, our kids were on the swim team together also, the one that Katie Porter's kids are on.
Yeah.
They did junior lifeguards together,
When all
our
this was going
kids.
down and they were all together with, you guys were all intertwined with your kids and lives and things like that, did anybody come up to
Yeah.
you and say, "Why is Anne Marie acting like that?" Or "I haven't seen Anne Marie," or like
Yeah,
were
a
they
lot of
worried
people
about
did.
her?
Yeah, a lot of people, because they knew her, at least they didn't know her as well as I did, but a lot of people knew her as a good, fun, interesting, healthy, a parent because she was, and also an expert in the School of Education, and then a world expert in the area of motivation specifically.
Before
All of
any of
those
this
things were
happened,
true.
was she like driving the kids around? Like you guys would have like a group of kids from the neighborhood or whatever, everybody would go places and stuff. Like was she trusted with the friends and stuff like that?
Yeah, to the extent that she did that. I mean, I was always primarily involved with the kids, so I was always doing more than she was because she was working full time as a young assistant professor. I mean, that's how it starts. Um, I was working usually around half time, um, but I was raising our kids, so I was primarily doing that. And then to the extent that I was working, it was usually with stuff related to her work. So,
So you were a
yeah,
stay-at-home dad and she was working full time, but she was a trusted mom. Like she was a good mom. You've said that numerous
right.
times.
Well, and
Yeah.
yeah, not only that, because we live on campus, right adjacent to it. Um, like a working person is still in the neighborhood quite a bit, or could be. So you can walk to work, and the people who
Right.
live on one side of the street, work on the other side of the street. So, I mean, it's still very much full-time work, and she had an office and she was there, like for sometimes all day, sometimes all day
Mm.
plus. Still a lot of the time is spent in the community as opposed to I have kids, but I don't see them that much because I'm working. Then I got to pick them up from daycare and all that. It wasn't like that.
So it was
I
interactive. She was around. She was known. She was
super,
about.
yeah, super interactive, super interactive. So in this case, like with Sonia, who I was telling you about, that referred her to the psychologist.
Yeah.
I think the year before I was coaching the team, I think Anne Marie coached the team. So, before she broke at a certain point, she was actually doing stuff like that. So this was someone who knew her as a friend, a colleague, um, a parent, another parent in the neighborhood, um, who then she came to know later as like because the kids maintain their friendship over years. So it's like, well, where's Anne Marie? What's going on? She's upstairs. She doesn't leave the house. So this is someone who, as a professional, as a parent in the neighborhood, thinking about it, she said, hey, maybe this person. So that was how I took it. And that's how she got connected um, in that
That
way.
makes sense.
Yeah, and
So
they're
she
they're
sends.
Mhm. Yeah, so there aren't a lot. There are people here who knew her as a good, healthy, safe, competent person. Like, and then they would see her. They would see her do things like run 8 miles from her house and come back, things like that. So then a few years later, they see her as someone who doesn't leave the house. And by the way, no one is suspecting me of anything because I'm trying to take care of her and I'm taking care of our kids. And I might as well live in a glass house because
Right. You're like right in the center of everything.
all of my neighbors are connected to the university, and the vast majority of them, almost all of them, are a house that has one or two professors.
Yeah. So everybody kind of
Yeah.
knows everything if they want to. You're not in an area where secrets can be kept for very long, it seems like.
Yeah, right. Because
Somewhat.
everybody, yeah, somewhat. I mean, you can still be, you can be private or you can try to be private, but there is a limit because everybody is around everyone else. I mean, even if you don't talk to anyone and you drive away every morning, you drive away every morning and
And they see you.
people, yeah, I mean, they'll know at least like, oh yeah, he's a professor in physics and he doesn't talk to people and you know they've
Right.
lived here a
Well,
long
and then there's
time.
the gossip train too. You've got the people that'll know what's going on and chit chat about it around the water cooler. So it's not like your story was unknown or she was unknown or this went under the radar and nobody knew about it.
Yeah, no,
Sounds
it
like
was.
y'all were public eye in a fishbowl and everybody saw what was going on and was like, I have no idea.
It couldn't have been much more public because, she was a real extroverted person, before she like really had problems. And she was also a child actor, so she was very dramatic and demonstrative and interactive in a way that wouldn't be unusual. And then I was on the homeowners board, so I represented people here, and um, kind of went in a big way outside of my comfort zone, because I felt like it was important for people to know what was going on, because otherwise it was happening in secret. Um,
Right.
and so while I was trying to get things done privately and trying to, um, I was trying to figure out what to do to help her, basically, because we were all so dependent on it. But I was doing it in a public way, um, and even that, like being on the homeowners board, that's an entire zip code on campus. It's the biggest faculty enclave like it in the United States. And I was one of 7 people representing the people here. People like my congressperson, and my state senator. I'm representing them here. And if you say, like, well, that's no big deal, it's a homeowners board. It's like, well, yeah, except for
They cared.
when they care a lot. Yeah, because when Katie Porter wanted the pools open when they were closed, during COVID, she didn't go to them and say, "Hey, I'm a congressperson, open the pools." She said to me, "Can you talk to them if you need some information?" She was like, "Here's some guidance. We just came out of a meeting in Congress. Tell them this."
That's
So,
intriguing. Like the
isn't
power
it?
structure there is interesting for people to know. So there's a lot of people that don't understand how boards work. I realized that after sitting on them and talking about being a treasurer or a secretary.
Hmm.
The general public doesn't understand that a board is like powerful. Um,
Right.
I
Well, and it
think, and
was,
that's an interesting dynamic. So a congressperson
isn't
comes
it?
to you because they need something done in their community.
Yeah, and it made perfect sense too. Like I mean, there wasn't anything wrong with it. I totally agreed with
Yeah.
her. I was because they should have been open. They were doing stupid stuff, and
Yeah.
it was safe. It was healthy. The kids needed it. I mean, so when people are right, they're right. So Katie Porter was exactly right about that. I agreed with her, and not only that, I was happy to have her help because she's because she was what who she, because of who she was. But
Yeah.
I also understood that she didn't want to, um, like it wouldn't have been appropriate really for this is a little bit my interpretation. She doesn't want to come in so heavy, like as a congressperson saying you need to do this. Um, but it also shows like how power dynamics work too, where she was like at odds with them. Like she was frustrated
Yeah.
with the homeowners, with the private company that runs the public or that runs the housing for the public university. So this is also a public-private partnership, which are very problematic also, because they can be private when they want to be private and they can be public when they want to be public. But she was coming through me because it was the right level at which to address the issue. You don't need the president of the United States to talk about the neighborhood pool. Um, by the same
Precisely.
token, but it didn't go the other way. By the same token,
Right.
I needed her to exert power at the level that she could and at the levels that she can, and that's what she doesn't do.
She said, "No,
Um,
I'm federal. Sorry."
yeah, no, I'm federal, sorry. And even that, yeah, so that's problematic. But I mean, I want to be fair. So I think that's fair. Um,
That's nice of you. Not everybody wants to do that. So, so if we think about this email, so you said at 2016 she was around, she hadn't broken. She was really close to you finding out what she was doing on Minecraft.
Yeah, she'd been increasingly active on Minecraft in a way um
Like concerning.
that was extremely concerning. So I mean, it had all been concerning for a long time. So for way over a year at this point, she'd been reclusive. Um and and it's kind of a long story how we get there, but she'd had problems for quite a while. It looked like things maybe were getting better because when she went from not talking to anybody to talking to people online, that was and there's nothing else at that point, that was seen as a positive step. So I don't know what's going to happen next. I just know that she's like getting out of bed and going to the computer. She's, interacting with people and starting in just a little bit. So, but by the time we get to here, it's concerning because it's around the clock, it's on medications, and it's starting to get loud and it's starting to get weird in
But
ways that
even
it
at that
hadn't
point,
been
she still
before.
cares about the kids. She doesn't want them in a non-Montessori school. And
Yeah, so you see, right. So she'd been up to this point, really, she had been like neglectful. I mean, like ignoring them even. Um, but mostly it seemed like it was related to like her, as she described it, like severe depression that was like incredibly debilitating. That's how it appeared at the time. Like I mean literally in bed all day. Like, like I'd take the kids to school, I'd
yeah,
be out all day, I'd have work, errands, whatever, maybe even go to dinner with the kids. Maybe they had like they ran track, so maybe they had track afterwards or something. Get home late, and then she's still in bed, and there isn't really evidence that she got out, except for maybe like say a bowl of cereal that she went downstairs to get and bring back up. Um, so by this point, she'd
healthy.
started at least getting up and playing video games and stuff, but it was starting to get concerning in a different way because she was doing it in a manic way, like 24 hours straight, weird stuff, and then crashing. But yeah, you can see the concern. And I like this because, so it's got a date, it's from her, it's to me, April 4th, 2016. And then she says, so the title of it, regarding, and then it's educational plans for the Conley children next year. This is because we have three kids all in a private school, all on scholarship, and it's Laporte Montessori, and we're very much invested in it. Um, it's so, and we get a really good deal on it, but we're still paying a lot for it as well. And because, like, to give you an idea, since our house was subsidized, we're paying more for tuition for our kids than we are for our mortgage. Um, so it's still a significant amount of money for us, even though we're getting a good deal, and it has to be worked out from year to year. And we're more needy of help because of the condition Anne-Marie is in. So that's some of the context. So it's coming from the school. We're trying to work out what we're going to do for the next year. They want to know if our kids are going to be enrolled there, and we need to know how we're going to pay for it if they are. And they know our kids well because they've been going to school there. They know Anne Marie from when she was a professor of education and a huge advocate of Montessori education. They also know her now as someone who can't talk. So Anne-Marie writes to me because I show her I say, hey, this is what the school is doing. This is what I was able to work out. This is what I think we should do. And then the education professor, says, I think all of this sounds right. There's really no way we want them in a non-Montessori school. It's really stressful to think about, and I appreciate all that you've done. I hope something falls into place soon. Anne-Marie. So she's writing to me, her husband, who I'm taking care of the kids 24/7. And so that's exactly right. I mean, there was no way we wanted them in a non-Montessori school. And when she says that, she means a real Montessori school, not the one that's on campus around the corner from us. That's a really big deal. She says it's stressful to think about. That's because she's not doing anything. I'm doing all of it. So she finds it stressful to even think about it. And then she
Right.
appreciates it, which she did. And I hope something falls into place, which it did, because it didn't fall into place. I worked it out with the school. And then that
So
turned
when
out
you,
being, Mhm.
sorry, go ahead.
Well, I mean, so that's the email. I mean, I think the rest of it's just the signature on it. So that's the email, and that's April 4th, 2016. Like, what's going to come up is with this started, you asked me about CLO Drive. And
Right,
so
right. How
I
long
said,
after this was she on? the TV show? Like, just before we get into the details, like, time frame wise, how many years?
Right, right. So this captures, authentic Anne Marie, even though she's, in reclusion and has had this really hard time for, a couple of years, at least at this point. Um, she is, there's no way we want our kids in a non-Montessori school. And even more than that, there's no way we want them doing anything to do with Hollywood. So that would be 100%, she'd be 100%. Be like, do you want them to be in a non-Montessori school? No. Do you want them to be in Hollywood? Oh, hell no. Okay, so that's where we're starting. April 4th. June 11th. So, 2 months later is when I find out that not only is she playing Minecraft with kids, she's in a highly inappropriate relationship with at least one of them who's a minor. So then I find that out. And when I find that out, that's devastating and for lots of reasons. Um, and then the first practical one is that I feel like it puts our children, especially our whole family, but our children in great danger because I think this is illegal, is what I'm thinking, and it's certainly against policy. I mean, it's you
And it's not
definitely.
illegal that people brush past. You start talking about this and you're like,
Yeah, I mean, our whole lives flash before my eyes because, I mean, I think what a betrayal in the marriage, but I mean, that was already, you know, it had already been difficult for a long time. But what I thought is she doesn't have tenure yet. She, which I thought she had already earned and deserved and was arguing about that already, which is a whole other story. But I'm thinking our entire lives are invested in this place and in her career and in the home, which is the thing that anchors us to the schools, to the children's friends and their families, to this safe place, to everything that we're doing. We bet everything on this and invested in it. And now um, she's recklessly just put that all in huge jeopardy. So that was the main thing I was thinking, beyond like how it affected me personally, which obviously was devastating. Um, so anyway, that was just June 11th. Then the third date is, I think it's September 2nd. So September 2nd is when, or in early September is when she's filming for Fuller House for a week. So that's how quickly things change. You go from, you know, well, our kids, thanks for helping get him into school for the next year. Of course, we don't want him in a non-Montessori school too. Finding out about a relationship with a minor, among other things. And then she's in Hollywood filming. Like, we never even talked about her not doing it because we were talking about our kids not doing it. I mean, of
yeah,
course,
she
she
was kind
wasn't
of
going to
like,
do
no
that.
way, right?
Yeah,
She left.
no, she was retired. It was over. There was no way that she was going to do it. And then you had asked about Cielo Drive. So during all of this time, so from April, probably before, she had started telling me that this guy, Jeff Franklin, was badgering her, like calling her, would not leave her alone. And because we didn't really talk about Hollywood, I just took it as like, whatever. There wasn't anything to do about it. She was just telling me this. One of the only things she was telling me. So I just didn't think that much of it.
That's weird
Then,
too.
yeah, so then like I've been going on for some time. So then I didn't know it at the time, but this guy, I mean, she might have mentioned it, but I just wasn't really paying that much attention to it, to be honest. But this guy, Jeff Franklin, was the creator and showrunner for Full House, which she had been on as a child actor. And so they were
Kathy
doing this
Santoni, shout out.
exactly. Kathy Santoni on Full House. So they had restarted, they did this reboot Fuller House, and it had some but not all of the former cast on it. And he was trying to get her to appear on an episode, or maybe even episodes, but trying to get her to come back. And so the whole time when she was telling me, it was just like, he keeps badgering me. I don't call him back. I don't, I can't believe he's calling me. I don't talk to him, but just kind of like that is how she was talking about it. I don't know who he is, so I'm not giving it any energy. I'm just like, oh, okay, you know, whatever.
Wow.
But then I find out about the minor, then we confront her and try to help her. It's a whole other story. But basically, since her parents were in Belgium, because I would have gone to them first, but they weren't in Orange County, they were in Belgium for 2 years, which is its own weird thing. What are they
Yeah.
doing? What are they doing there? Um, then I had two of her best friends who were like her parents' age. So they were a generation older than us. One was the Montessori teacher, the professional Montessori educator, who was distinguished in her own way, and we really looked to as our personal Montessori expert. And also, he was our oldest teacher at the time. And the other was a distinguished professor here at UC Irvine who knew about it. So the three of us confronted her about what I found out, and we said we did it with no judgment and unconditional love, which was true. We wanted to help her, and we had specific help too. We had places she could go right that moment. One was at the professor here had it set up for her to go to UCLA, where they had a program there where they would help her and she would get help in a special way because she's faculty, so they would take care of her. And it would explain like all of her weird stuff because she would get credit for it wasn't her fault she got injured. Was it her fault that she had this psychological breakdown if she was working to get better? So, we wanted to help. The other person had a place in Malibu that was separate, but the Montessori person. So, but the point being that there was an effort to help her. So when we confronted her, I mean, and we brought food and flowers, and we really wanted to talk. And she basically just said she heard it all. We thought that she would accept our help, and she basically said, "You know what? F you. I have a psychologist. He's already helping me. We're doing the thing with Minecraft. I have an appointment coming up. You guys can go." And so she just ended two of her best relationships, and like pivoted in a way that I did not expect. And then from then till now, she's been running straight against me and everything. Um, so
So
that's
that's
what
weird.
happened. What it has to do with Cielo Drive is that this guy Jeff Franklin, who'd been badgering her, um, was I found it. So I find all these things out later. By the way, I talked to Emma about this. It's in my interview, in my deleted interview. We
I
talked
thought it
about this.
was. Yeah.
It is because she actually looked it up on the fly because I couldn't remember the guy's name. To give you an idea how much I thought of it at the
Oh,
time.
okay. I
Um,
remember seeing it flash across the screen.
yeah, he's the longtime owner of Cielo Drive, and Cielo Drive is, you know, one of the most, I guess, infamous. It's one of
Yeah.
the most infamous addresses in all of Los Angeles history. So it was,
I would say most of the world knows if they've studied those cases.
yeah, it was 10050 Cielo Drive. I mean, it's got its own Wikipedia page. And so
Yeah.
that was where Sharon Tate and the others were murdered by the Manson family. And so it's the place where Roman Polanski was pictured with a story in Life magazine with her blood on the door, the front door. He was pictured with it. It's a place where Marilyn Manson and Nine Inch Nails, I think, have been associated with it, recorded things there. Anyway, turns out this guy, Jeff Franklin, like, owns the home. So I was saying, he's not just calling,
Heard
he's
it
calling
all.
from that dark place. I mean, he could be calling from anywhere, but he was calling from there. In a way, it's almost like it doesn't really matter that much, except for there are all these people that are into every kind of conspiracy, but then don't want to talk about my story. And I'm like, it's connected to everything in these weird ways. So It's the guy that owned that home, and you were asking what did Cielo Drive have to do with it, and it's
Yeah.
that. It's like
So it wasn't
so
long. We're talking months after this email. She was back on Fuller House after chatting
yeah,
with Jeff Franklin, who was living at Cielo Drive at the time. The Manson murder house, Cielo Drive. Yeah.
yeah, the guy who was Bob Saget's best friend.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
I mean,
Which,
if you want
the
to talk
only
about
2
Hollywood
characters that
stuff,
I don't think came back to Fuller House, I mean, the main characters were the 2 twins. I mean, other than that, everybody came back, from my
I didn't
understanding.
know that. I didn't know that. But I was up there for filming. I did take the kids up there. So if I was better prepared, I
Really?
would have had that picture ready to go. Yeah, the picture
Yeah.
of, have you ever seen it? There's a picture of them in front of
Yeah,
her
you posted it.
trailer.
Yeah.
I've posted that one sometimes. Um, so yeah, I mean that's it. But you kind of get the whole thing in this in this like little email, because it says so much. It um, shows what we think about Montessori. You can tell who's doing the work. You can tell also that we're still very much on the same team here, at least as regards the children. She's concerned about it. She's grateful for my help. We're on the same
That
page.
part's
I mean,
huge.
it's implicit in this. And then if and I mean, there's screenshots. So if we were to do this over, or if I were to put it together in like, like, like more of a packaged kind of thing, could do it really, now that I think about it, with 3 screenshots. Like this would be one, and it would tell what we've talked about. Second one would be, I took a picture of her phone because that was how I found out about the relationship in the first place. I mean, I can
Oh,
show, June 11th, 8 a.m., picture of her phone, it's what I see. And then I think it's September 2nd, not that long after, she was up there for filming for a week up in Burbank, Warner Brothers. But one of the days she was filming, I took our 2 youngest up there because I had worked some in Hollywood, and I thought, well, if their mom is in, a show, um, I should take them up there because I'm a Montessori educator, and I'm thinking like this is
learn
something to
from their
know about.
environment.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, they can learn all about like how you make a television show. That's a kind of a neat experience to have. And then they can also know this about their mom, even though it's something she said she would never do, even though she was like really awful to me at that point. Everything was hard. Um,
Well, and
Even
she's
still, I
engaging
took
in
them up
criminal
there.
behavior at that point. Like, at that point, she's already
Yeah,
talking to
well, to have
minors.
her tell it by all the time, that later time in September, she would say that she was not, because that relationship had ended. But even that took a while, you
But
know.
the fact that she had been doing that at that time, that's, like,
Right. Yeah, no, and
that's
she
an
was,
interesting dichotomy of a brain too. Like, I care about my family, I care about what's going on. Thank you for all that you've done. Here, I'm gonna chat with this child in an inappropriate way.
yeah,
Um, there's a there's a mix in the brain that's not on a normal connection pattern. I don't wanna go as far as, like, say, disassociate or anything like that, but there's definitely this is different than the person who logs in to talk like this. And then not many months later, she's acting again, which is strange.
right. Yeah, it's something that she said she wasn't going to do, and
Ever,
why?
yeah. Wasn't that one of the pillars in your relationship? Like, she said, I don't remember exactly, so please fill me in, but it
Yeah,
was
well, I
something along the
told
lines of, "You guys met, we're gonna have kids, and then she's never gonna act. They're never gonna go to Hollywood."
Yeah. So I mean, I call them deal breakers because it
Right.
was when, we'd been dating for a while, and then so like this normal stuff, and at some point, it's like, well, we're serious. And I don't know if it was when we were engaged or right before or right after, but it was right in that time where we were talking. She basically said, look, I have two deal breakers. Like it's all good. We've been together for years, and she said it's all good, but we have to agree on two things. So and I think this is important because it tells you like how she was thinking and what was important to her. She said, "I want," and even the way that she put it. So she basically said she wanted to have two or three children and that they wouldn't be in Hollywood. But the way that she put it was, I want to have kids, and I don't want to have just one. I don't want to have an only child. Okay, so okay. She said, but I don't want to have four or more. And that was significant because she was, one of four. So I think she was thinking like that's a bit much. So two or three children, right? At least two, maybe three, not four. So I said, yeah, okay, that sounds perfect. I want to have kids too. Um, I just had one sibling, so that sounded right to me. Sounded great. So I said, okay, yeah, sure, of course. That sounds great. And then the other one is, and she said, and they will not ever, ever, no matter what, ever, ever work in Hollywood. It was something like that. Like, like more adamant about that than the first point. Not because it was necessarily more important, because maybe the first, that she wouldn't be surprised that I would agree about like two or three kids. That's normal. But the Hollywood thing she was really specific about. And at the time, I didn't think that much of it. I just thought, yeah, of course. I
Right.
don't really want to do that either because we'd both kind of been, I mean, she'd been involved with that in a big way, and I had been involved in it with it probably longer, but in a very indirect way by comparison. Um, but together we both, lived and were connected to it in lots of different ways over time. So that's the context in which she comes back,
That
right?
is a very big break. I mean, when we talk about, she broke, a lot of people will
Broke.
seemingly dismiss a lot of these things because everybody has a mental breakdown, everybody has a bad day. Um, this is a complete, I mean, 180.
Yeah, it was a complete break. Like, and I don't think people understand just how big a break it was. And not that they necessarily would. I mean, maybe I didn't explain it well enough, but it just occurred to me, like, to give you an idea, one way, like they would not wear any clothes that had any kind of Hollywood music, entertainment, any kind of branding, anything like that. So, which
Did
might
she all
seem,
go to Disney? Did she let y'all go to Disney?
well, interestingly, we did. We did. Her parents have a apartment in Anaheim. She lived off of Catella, which is just Catella is what Disneyland Street Disneyland is on. So
But they were just normal family fun experiences. Y'all didn't have any drama, any issues. She didn't have any breakdowns there.
she didn't go that often, actually. And I treated it more like a park. So this is before they're in school. We would get annual passes for
Mm-hmm.
Disneyland because back then, especially they would have SoCal resident annual passes. I don't know if they have them
Yeah.
anymore, but you could get them. They were super cheap, and then they had a lot of blackout dates. So like the entire months of July and August would be blacked out. Like every, I think Saturday, you could never go on Saturday or weekends. So it's very restrictive that way. But like for us, especially at the time, and then we would and then buy the parking that went with it, and then I would go there maybe once a week, every other week, just like I was going to a park. Like we'd go to the beach. Like we went to the beach way more
Right.
often, neighborhood park. Sometimes we go up there just, and then up there we wouldn't really ride the rides that much, or if we did, it'd be, whatever the kids wanted to do. But I would always have at least two of them with me, like either
Mm-hmm.
the two oldest early, or like once he was in school. If had the two younger ones, I might take him there. Um, but I mean, I was experiencing it more like like a huge urban park than like this
Right.
place where you fork over a lot of money and buy balloons and spend a ton of money on bad food. Like we would pack our own food in. Like we'd never buy food there. We didn't have enough money to buy food there. It's super expensive. So it was like you buy it was like buying a season pass to go snowboarding or something. It's like you get it, and it's like you want
Yeah.
to go snowboarding and get your money's worth. It was like that.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
then other family would meet there, but that's before I know all of the stuff I know. So I know Hollywood is connected to Disney and that it's weird and problematic. But I don't think of it the same way as I think now. And I don't think of Disney that different from the other places at that point. We're just in Orange. I mean, I come to learn things over time, that's part of the reason why I know how people think about it, because that was how I was thinking about it
Right.
until
Yeah.
I wasn't. Um, yeah. I mean, I thought it was a weird place in a lot of ways, but I mean,
Well, it's it's
I've
built on the magic dream. It's not gonna be gross for everybody. It's only gonna be gross for the few people that are part of the behind the scenes trauma story that it's covering. Most people are gonna see the magical, beautiful, or like, "Man, that's for kids." So it
right.
doesn't, you know.
And to give you an idea in time, this is going to be like 2009, 10, 11,
Yeah,
pretty
okay.
much that. Pretty much that by 2011, I'm out of it because 2012 is when we started with Montessori. And then that's where, our thinking is really different on a
Yeah,
lot of
makes
stuff.
sense.
And I think it's also when stuff starts happening, maybe more generally in the environment where it starts becoming. I mean, I guess there's people who've known a lot all along, but it was starting to become clear for more people that there were some really specific problems going on with Disney and other things connected to it, like Nickelodeon and whatever else. Um,
Yeah, I mean, it
but
had
yeah,
definitely been going on forever, but it was all hush hush conspiracies and
yeah. But I
it
mean,
had been going on in Disney since the Mickey Mouse Club early. I mean, Disney himself was corrupt, but we don't have to go back so far.
and it still goes on. So it's like, it's not like I and everyone in Orange County have figured stuff out. It's more like
Yeah.
everything else is still going on. I mean, the season tickets are more expensive than ever. There's still advertising everywhere. People go there all of the time. They're talking about it. Like it's not like there's like this huge awareness that there's a problem. It's maybe some growing awareness about it, but I mean, for
It's
the
still one of
most
those that
part,
they ignore though. Oh yeah, Disney's corrupt, but we'll just go have fun. That's what I'm seeing. Not many
yeah.
people have gotten to the boycott spot. Um,
Yeah, well, and then where I am in Orange County, um, it's like what water is to fish. I mean, it's just is. It's like
right.
people for
It's your culture.
for most people, it just is. And if you'd confront them with some of these things that we've been talking about, they'd be like, "Well, it's a big organization. Of course, there's going to be people that are doing all kinds of stuff there. Just, I mean, what do you expect?" Um, they're not going to be
Yeah.
thinking of it as like like a place that is dangerous for children or that attracts pedophiles or anything. They're just going to think like, well, same with the Catholic Church, same with the other churches, same with, schools. You got to watch out for your kids. There's crazy people everywhere. I think would be how they would think of it. That would be like how most people would think of it. And even people who are like following Epstein and some other stuff and are aware of more than maybe most people or more than people had been years ago, they still don't really directly connect it to Disney because it's just the place is so immersed in it, and you can't really separate. I mean, sometimes I think of it as just Disney County because it's
Right.
so central to what's going on. People go to church and then they go to Disneyland afterwards. That's like a
Yeah.
normal Sunday.
Yeah.
here.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, so it's weird listening to people talk about the place I live and the things I know about. You know, my ex-wife was a child actor and also a professor, and I live on a campus and we're raising children and we're talking about Disneyland, and I'm completely kept out of that conversation because there's all of these whistleblowers who have extreme stories or have things to say from a few thousand miles away. And I'm like,
Yeah,
you know, I
is
can,
that was one of the things that I had said. I said, before I knew most about your story. I was most interested because you were there. You had
Mhm.
the firsthand experience. It's one thing if I research this stuff and I know how it fits into my story and I was taken there, but you see it from this perspective. You know these people. You've been to this place. You've lived this culture. You grew up in this area, and that's a
Right.
different understanding of knowledge. And it was very shocking to me to come back to the Emma group or whatever, like, that
Hmm.
was very shocking to me that that was not held in any sort of an esteemed, like, "Oh, yeah." In fact, it was thrown against me that I forget exactly how it was said, but I was like, he is a valuable resource to the survivor community in the sense that he has firsthand knowledge of these people that we're researching in articles online and finding out other people's opinions of them, and he's
Right.
spoken to them. Like, that is a
Yeah,
very valuable information piece.
I
Whether you
know.
like him or not, or believe him or not,
I know.
you can't take an article for serious and not ask him the same questions and say that you've done your research.
I
And
know.
that's
And I'm
where it was frustrating.
totally. And I mean, and I'm here looking to other people who are elsewhere doing research and work, and I'm like, grateful for them, even though they're far away and they don't know as much. I'm really glad that they're
Right.
digging into stuff. And then to just be completely cut off from it is super weird. So J.R. Sweet is a survivor, and he has a whole
Yeah.
lot to say about Disneyland and what he remembers about the place. And I'm like listening to him. Some of it's very hard to believe, but I'm listening because
Yeah.
um
But it's
I want to
heavy.
know, and I mean, I'm grateful for him, and I'm sorry for what he experienced, and I'm
Yeah.
listening. And so, like, I had said something, or I'd written something. Maybe he wrote back, he liked something, whatever. Um, but then he realizes that Emma's opposite me and just blocked me. It's like, well, wait a minute,
Oh, no.
I never said anything negative. I never thought anything negative, and I was reading what he wrote and listening to what he said with great curiosity. Or another one is like Tez, who does research on child actors. So I'm like super grateful that this person thousands of miles away is doing research on Hollywood and with a particular focus on child actors because it really does need to be covered and somebody does need to do something. And I thought he was doing a great job and I was supporting him. And then one word from Emma blocks me, and then and he falls over himself to like thank her and appreciate her and for saving him from me and all of this stuff. And I can see the fireworks from my house every night. You know what I mean? I
And
all
you were married to
I
a child actress that's on, I mean, the dots. Leonardo DiCaprio's on Tez's mind map, and Leonardo DiCaprio was what
yeah.
Anne Marie's first, like, Hollywood boyfriend situation type discussion.
Yeah, that's what her family says. She got in
Yeah.
trouble for the long distance bills, back when you had to pay
Yeah.
for that. She quit acting when Heather O'Rourke died. Um,
And
lives
not only
she
quit out, but she knew her, right? Like, they were friends. She was at her birthday party, right?
Yeah, I think so. That's how I understand it. I mean, that's what I was told, and that's what everybody says. I mean, her family was there. Her younger brothers knew firsthand, as did her best friend in high school, who I knew. Um, so yeah. Um, and she grew up right off Catella, just down the street from Disneyland. And she went to Los Alamitos High School, which is the same school that Allison Mack went to a few years later. Um,
Yeah. Yeah.
so
The
it connected,
Nixium, Allison Mack.
right. And then Allison Mack also followed her, but went to the same place that she went to college, which was Cal Berkeley. She also got a degree in the same area, which was psychology. So, you know, they all,
A
it
lot of
also
child
was,
actresses do that. They go into brain
right.
study.
Yeah, which makes sense. But anyway, like those those are things that I would think would be relevant to researchers and survivors
Yeah.
and people like looking into this stuff. And if nothing else, it would be something to fact check. And if you care about these people, like what about her? Like,
Right.
so
Where's she on the survivor map of all this stuff?
she's not as famous as a lot of the people in child acting. She's not as famous as most, if not all, of the people that say Tez covers. Um,
I
but
don't know. I mean,
yeah, I don't know, but she was prolific, and she's the only one who became a tenured professor at an R1 university. I know that, and that very fact alone, that she's a member of SAG as a child, Screen Actors Guild, the Professional Acting Guild. She's a member as a child, and also was a tenured professor at an R1 university, research university. There's nobody else. So
yeah,
they
that's not a normal pathway.
what, yeah, but why not? I mean, so given all of that, is that someone that would be worth interviewing? Especially since
Mm-hmm.
you already interviewed me?
Mm-hmm. 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 Mm-hmm.
Doesn't
Yeah,
make
it's
sense.
at least putting the dots on the map. It's interesting that you just got wiped off the can contribute
Right,
list altogether.
right.
Um,
But like, never
for
mind
and I've always
me. Who,
said this. It's one thing if it was something that they could throw at you that was real, but it's contrived messages that can't really be discussed because when you say someone's harassing you,
yeah,
how do you prove that? I felt that way. It's
exactly.
true. And when you read the harassment messages, it's you saying, "But you deleted and this is what happened and I'm just curious, can you answer this?" And she's like,
Right.
"Stop harassing me." Like, "Wait a
Yeah,
minute, that's
exactly.
not exactly harassment." Like, harassment would be the defaming behavior that she has contributed to. It would be the this person is blah blah blah. That is
Right.
harassment. And that has really diminished a lot of people from being able to understand your story or how your story and its components, even the research that you do. Like your story is huge in all of the pieces. And I've learned a lot from your story and you're discussing it because of
Hmm.
my LA parts. So as a survivor, it would be very beneficial if you were able to just talk freely. Other people were able to engage and say, this is
Right.
what I remember. This is what I had happen there. Oh, yeah, we were there too. But with you being
Yeah.
ostracized, that was really one of the first times I saw the survivor community splinter. And
Yeah.
so it has happened multiple times since then, but it seems
Hmm.
like that caused a disconnect in you're not allowed to converse with some people. And
Hmm.
that was really quite choose this team. And that's
Right.
not how we get to solutions. That's how we hide stuff. That's how we confuse the masses who are trying to learn something. Um, and that's not solutions. And I have a problem with that. So like, I hope that is made sense here. Anybody that might be watching or listening, whatever you do, like the idea is to get to not like name drop and discuss who's bad and who's good and join our team, not their team. No,
Hmm.
it's like this is a dot. And if it relates to your story, we want you to be able to have that dot. And we want you to be able to hear that dot in a way that's not contrived. Because if it's your story that you're trying to put together, you need to be able to hear it and understand it and think about it for yourself. And when other people throw in their lies, their mixes, their drama, their stuff that
Hmm.
isn't true because they have a narrative to control, the main message is gone. You're not able to seep through the junk to get to the truth. And we've seen that. Your story's been diminished on this one platform because of a contrived narrative. And
Right.
I hope that, you'll be able to jump onto a different platform and see that other people in the world actually do care. But X is a toxic environment.
Yeah. No, and I'm
But it
aware.
has all the I think it was Elon that said X is a crime scene. Somebody said X is a crime scene. And
Yeah, I don't
they
know if
keep
he
track
said
of all
that.
the evidence there, that's for sure.
Yeah, I mean, and even if you like, never mind me, just like even if you said like, I don't care, he's just one person, why do I care? I don't know him, I got enough to worry about. So even still, there's all of this information, all of these connections, all of these things that might be relevant. I mean, lots of people, right? Full House, Allison Mack, Disneyland, big university, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. All of this.
Belgium,
Yeah,
Heather
Belgium.
O'Rourke.
Yeah, all of it. So even if you're like, I don't care about Brad, I don't, doesn't matter. Um, Even still, you don't get any of this information. It's completely unconnected. It's disconnected from all of the other discussions. So for instance, if J.R. Sweet is talking about Disneyland, or if another one of her guests is talking about Hollywood, I don't know, does she even have anyone that's been on her show that's been in,
A lot of
that's
people
like a
discuss
member?
that region, but I haven't seen anybody that I haven't watched in
Like,
a
has
while,
she
but I
had
haven't,
anyone that's like a SAG actor or
I
a
don't,
spouse of a? I
I
can't
don't
even
think
think of anyone.
so.
I'm trying to like elevate someone, and I can't even think of someone in that realm that, or like, has she had any professors on or people that are married to professors? I don't know if she has, other than me. Um,
Not that
but it,
I'm
but it,
aware of.
it just, it just takes all of that out of the conversation, and so it's not connected. So it's something that we connect to J.R. Sweet because of Disneyland, and I know there are several other people who've talked quite a bit about Disneyland. So it just
Yes.
takes I don't claim to be a victim of Disneyland or in that way, but I mean, I'm here, and I mean, I was trying to help somebody who maybe was, and I'm cut off
Right.
from
Right. Well,
other
and who knows
people.
what
It-
dots you have just from experiencing that somebody might be looking for. For instance, I asked you about a pizza place that I had been trying to. Actually, you've given me quite a few dots. Mickey Mouse Club person that I had remembered meeting, a pizza place that I had been remembered going
Mhm,
to. And I will, I ask you about these because you live there and you don't know what my story is. You're not trying to
mhm.
contrive the details to tell me about this shady spot. You're like, well, it could be that person, it could be this person. I know that person did this. I know this person did that. Those are
Right,
research dots. I was able to take those things you just threw off because you know these places, and I
right.
found both of them. So
Yeah,
imagine what survivors could do if they're like, I have this thing, I'm trying to remember this. If there was only anybody that lived there at this time frame, and then they
yeah.
stumbled on your stories because people were talking to you. But that stopped all
Hmm.
immediately when someone who's a big influencer decided they didn't like you, and then a block campaign happened. So I don't think it's about
Right.
this person, that person, whatever. It's about where can I find my dots and is the available information trustworthy and there. And
Yeah,
when the narrative
exactly.
is controlled, it's not. And that's a problem. We're not going to get to solutions with controlled narratives that are not true.
Yeah, and by taking evidence and information off of the table, like why would you want
Right.
to do that? What, like even if
Yeah.
I'm a bad guy, then why not leave it up and talk about how I'm a bad guy or what I was doing? I mean,
Well, even
it's
so much
it's
as
incredible.
it is incredible because the way that, like, from a marketing perspective, the way to address that, because I've already platformed your video. It's 3 hours long. It's been up for 300 days and I've shared it 35 times on my feed. That's a lot for me to delete to make sure that nobody knows I knew you. So I need to get around this a different way. How can I control this so that I don't go down with your bad reputation, Brad? Well, I'm going to take your interview that's
Hmm.
still up there and I'm going to sit in front of it and say, he says this. This is now the truth that I know. He says
Right.
this. This is now the truth that I know. And you go through it. It'll give you more views. It'll give you the whole audience. It'll give you the truth. It'll make everybody know what happened, but that didn't happen. It was all deleted immediately. And 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 not all of it,
Maybe I
just
should
the
just
one that
go
you
through
can watch.
the whole interview. The thing
Mm,
is, I
put
don't
the
have
audio clip up here.
I only have the audio of it. I don't have the video of
Let's
it.
put the audio up on the podcast. Just let people listen to themselves. I share that spaces all the time. When anybody ever has any issue about whatever happened during that time, this is years ago. I'm like,
God.
listen to this. People will
Yeah.
not listen. They don't have it's like, I trust this person. I trust everything this person says. So I'm never going to question it again. That is a very dangerous
You know
position
what?
for people to be
I'm
in.
I'm so glad you mentioned that because, you know, like Stellar Fox got sideways with me in that because, or Kate, I think her name's Katie, because I referred to survivors as victims, is how she put it.
Right.
And so she took great offense that I used the word victim, which I do and I did, but I
They
never
are
did.
victims.
Yeah, I always meant it as an accurate term and an appropriate term, and um I never tried to misuse victim or survivor as a term to refer to people. And I was also aware that people preferred one term or the other. And so she was attacking me and really never let up for that, even with my explanation. Um, but then I was struck when Emma interviewed Fiona Barnett, or it could have been somebody else, but I heard Fiona Barnett speaking recently about how she dislikes the term survivor and insists on the term victim. So the one I was using, and her reason why, and her poignant example was, well, was Virginia Giuffre a victim or a survivor? And if she's a
Right.
survivor, what did she survive? Because she's dead.
Precisely. Precisely.
So, so, that's in
It's a
that.
personal preference. Yeah.
I don't know that I've listened to that Spaces ever since I did it because it was at a time which was so traumatic. And by the way, the reason it was so traumatic is not because of Emma and like hurt feelings or anything like that. It was because I knew that it was going to make it much, much harder for me in the real world and that my children were going to suffer negative consequences because of it. And they have. And when I've alluded to that, she's really poo-pooed it like that's no big deal and I can say whatever I want, just not on her
That's
platform.
the
But it
Yeah.
disconnected me from these really important relationships that I was trying to build in the wake of someone who had done that to me before in a different realm, which was in the family court area. And that was Susan Bassey and the stuff that I was doing. So it's like, once
Right.
again, that was happening. And then I would say also, so people don't have the benefit of, me and what I know or what I've said about things that are related to what other people are saying. So there's people don't have that information. On the other hand, and maybe even more valuable if you're able to look at it this way, is in through me and the way that everything happened from my interview all the way to its deletion and more. It tells a lot about Emma and the survivor community. And even if you don't have perfect answers, like a really good question is, why was my interview deleted? Because I don't think it has to do with personalities at all. I don't even think Emma dislikes me. I don't think she ever disliked me as a person. I never did anything to make her feel that way. I think what she doesn't like is the fact that she lied about me for whatever
You have the
reason
receipts.
and I pointed it out. She doesn't like that. I don't even think she doesn't like me. I think she likes me
It's not
fine.
good for her brand.
Yeah, lying is not good for her brand. As a master hypnotist who has the largest library of MK Ultra survivors, lying is not good for her brand.
That part right there, that part drives me absolutely insane because it's been brought up to her that you're saying you're a master hypnotist on this podcast. And her
Right?
response is, no, I only took one class. And then
Right.
you will go and use that one class and say, I am extensively trained as a master hypnotherapist.
Yeah.
So, did
Yeah.
you take one class to understand how survivors could be abused? Or are you, as you say, and before you started the podcast, a master hypnotherapist who's trained in that and understands NLP? And that was
Right.
a focus of your attention for more than one class because you've said it both ways
Right.
and contradictions can
Yeah.
exist in reality. So,
Yeah, so she's either a master hypnotist or she's not. She either, dove into it as a student of the practice or she didn't. But whatever it is, it should be explained in a way that resolves the contradiction. I was
Right.
exaggerating over here, or I was, or I'm putting it, I'm shading the truth in a certain way over here and over there. I'm not lying. Or I was
It's the
lying, you
same.
got me. I mean, just something, some
Exactly.
explanation for
It's
it.
the shady truth of the same whole cannabis thing on 420 recently, and you had mentioned how, and I don't follow the page. I blocked her because of
Yeah.
that one message I sent her, and I don't go back. So I'm
Hmm.
just going off of hearsay or whatever. But the posting of the cannabis culture stuff and not posting her picture with Snoop Dogg, who is king of cannabis culture. Why would you
I
not
know.
post Snoop Dogg
I
in the
know,
survivor
right?
community? Is there a reason not to? Like, if you're taking a photo with this celebrity, wouldn't that help your channel get more clout? Or does that celebrity have
Exactly.
trouble in the survivor community and you don't want people to know that you knew him, even if it was just a hug on the shoulder and you never talked to him again? That would probably damage your reputation with survivors if they knew you were part of his culture. But cannabis doesn't, because we know that if you smoke cannabis as a survivor, they can't get you anymore. So you can promote that, but we can't promote that you have a picture with that you promoted before when you were a master hypnotherapist with Snoop Dogg. That's what I don't
Right.
understand. That's the contradiction that's not making sense. It's one thing if you're like, this was before, now I know, and I'm speaking against this. But that's
Yeah,
not the
exactly.
message.
Exactly. Yeah, or whatever. It's the fact that it's not explained. So it just sits there as a weird, as a weird thing. As opposed to it being addressed. Like I don't think I have anything like that in on my timeline. You know what I mean? So here, like equivalence. So the thing with Snoop Dogg is important because he's so prominent, um, and she does have that picture, and she has um, used it to promote herself. So far so good. There's not a problem with that. Except for here's where it starts to be a problem. She interviews MK Ultra victims and SRA victims, and he has a past where says he was a professional pimp, and there's been articles written about it and whatever. So that's in the past. So at that point, minimum, it requires an explanation. And there's lots of ways that it could be explained. Um, or it could have been explained. It wasn't. It could have been, but I didn't know about that. Um, I just knew him as somebody famous in the same industry, and so it was helping me. And I don't agree with everything he
That would
does or
be
has
the
said,
yeah.
or something, or like even USC. I mean, because USC has to answer the same kind of questions the way that they give him.
That one's a little worse, to be honest. Like,
It's worse. No, it's a lot worse in ways. It's bigger, but I mean, even that could have an explanation, not one that I necessarily buy, but it could be like, well, that was then and this is now, and people
but it was
redeem
never
themselves.
addressed. If
No, it
that was the
wasn't.
case, then that would be a come up story that would be like a testimony that would bring people out of that drama. Look, you were in this. If you are hearing Snoop's story now and you find yourself as a pimp with girls, you can come out of that because he has come out of that. That was never addressed. He's always been an amazing entrepreneur, this amazing person.
Are you talking
That's
about from the perspective of USC or from the perspective of Emma?
all of the above.
Yeah. Yeah, well, see, with USC in that case, I mean, I don't think it's right, but they will hold a different context. They will hold the context of like SRA isn't real. We're an institution. You can live through your past. He was a victim of his upbringing and circumstances, whatever it is. Emma can't even do that, though. She knows way too much as a public advocate platforming survivors. She can't even excuse it that much. For her, I
Yeah,
think it
but
does require an explanation.
USC, isn't that on Figueroa Street with the child prostitute
Yeah,
ring?
yeah, yeah. No, I'm not saying you're wrong. I'm just saying
So, like, they
that,
have that to answer to. He was a pimp on this street, on this town, in this area. Now we're giving him Entrepreneur of the Year.
well, that's the point I made in the stuff that I
Yeah,
published. I'm just saying that
yeah, yeah.
they have or they could at least take the position of That's conspiracy theory. There's a whole bunch of stuff that was in the past. People redeem themselves. This is you know, a story of someone who transcended that early, even criminal childhood, but, a really difficult one. They could say that from where they are. Emma can't even say that without
Right.
direct contradiction. That's the point I'm making,
That's a good
is
point.
like, even though USC in a way it is worse, it's bigger, it matters more. They should know better. For Emma, like specifically because of how she positions herself and her mission, that it's a contradiction that absolutely needs to be addressed, just for like, maybe a lot of people don't know about it, but even still, just to have integrity, for it to all make sense, it would require some kind of explanation, and there isn't one given. um and so it just sits there as weird, and hypocritical. And it's the same thing with like the master hypnotist stuff. I actually defended her about that in a limited way when somebody was attacking her, when we were on the same page, saying, like, just by itself, um I don't think it impeaches her, and I don't think that it by itself is even a negative thing. So I think it would be a totally reasonable thing to say, look, in the past, I studied this. This is what I learned. This is where I think it's dangerous. This is where I think it's helpful. This is how I try to approach it. This is how I do it with integrity. There could be an explanation for it. Um, and in the same way, like with me and what was pointed out about Elizabeth Loftus. Well, what's the deal? He says she knows about his case. And then there would be the explanation. Well, she's my neighbor. She's an expert. I didn't know all of this when I first reached out to her. I reached out to her because my next door neighbor was connected to her lab. And then here's what happened. And then that would be the explanation. Um, but you don't see me like deleting that or trying to pretend like it's otherwise. I'm saying, ask me anything about it. Let me explain. You can
Right.
decide what you think about it. You should have information and make your own judgments. She's not doing that. She's hiding things, deleting
Controlling a
things,
narrative.
blocking people. Yeah. So it's no good. And so you don't get the
Yeah.
benefit of my interview, but you do get the benefit of knowing that there's something or things in that interview that she doesn't want people to know about. And then what those things are, it would be really interesting to know.
Right. No, that makes perfect sense. And I'll be, in the era of being transparent, you take the great stance of I'm not blocking anybody. I'm going to let them see that I'm
Hmm.
tagging them and I can do that. I don't
Right.
necessarily take that same stance
Hmm.
because as a survivor, I protect my peace. And if I see somebody showing up in my thing all the time,
Right.
it's going to mess me up. I can't do that. So I do use the block button. I teach people how to use the block button, and I teach people
Yeah.
why it's their valuable resource because it's your door to your home, and if your door is open and people can walk in and that causes you trauma, you're going to go
Right.
shut that door.
Yeah.
And so my block button is shutting the door sometimes to not let them necessarily affect my issue. That does not
Hmm.
mean I don't want them seeing what I talk about because they might need to know it. That does, and they can. On Twitter, they can still click to read your stuff. It's not that I'm blocking people so they don't see my stuff. It's that I don't want your drama in my life. That's
Right.
literally it. And I appreciate that you do the opposite stance because I, as a survivor, don't know that I could handle that. I can't handle a lot of times in certain moments, I can't handle the barrage of attack that seems contrived. And
Right.
so I admire the fact that you can do
Mhm.
that. And I think it's very, very valuable. And as someone who she has such a giant network of people who are paying attention in a vulnerable position,
Mhm.
I don't think she should be blocking and playing the blocking I don't like you game with other survivors because it causes a lot of confusion. So I need to, like hear me hosting a podcast. I need to be transparent, dogging on someone, for blocking people because I do it.
Oh, I
But
see
there's
what you
a
mean.
reason and there's opportunity and I'm not necessarily sharing everybody's story so that everybody can get all the puzzle pieces. I literally set out
Mhm.
on my journey to put my puzzle together And if it works out that I meet other people that have puzzle pieces, I'd like to share those. And I think that's a very different understanding than this is the Imagination podcast, or we are going to have the largest library of survivors, but I'm going to block this survivor so nobody can hear what he has to say and people don't understand it. I,
Right.
I don't think that's I don't think that's necessarily good. But I want to make the distinction because I have her blocked and I'm talking about her on my show. So that's an
Yeah.
issue, you know? Like
So
that's a
so as far as that goes, I don't think what's right for me is necessarily right for anyone else. And I think probably for most survivors, maybe all, maybe most, it does make sense to, use the block button, to be quick to use it and to preserve your boundaries, whatever they are.
right.
No, I don't like it. I don't particularly like the people who have negative things to say about me. Um, but I do leave it open. Um, and for a few reasons. One is it shows what I'm talking about. Um,
Hmm.
the other is that I feel like that I'm not a victim and survivor in the same way that a lot of people are. Um, So, I mean, I'm a victim of my own kind of situation, but it has to do with as an adult and in a non-physical way, um, especially psychologically and financially, in doing it through the courts and big institutions, and while trying to protect children, and also while trying to help someone who may be, in fact, that kind of a victim as a child, because after all, she was a child
Right.
actor. Um, so given all of that, I feel like, and I kind of took it as my place to try to be, I always think of it as like to go first or to be in front of some of these things. Again, non-physical, but like, so for instance, if Emma's going to be, or somebody else, a journalist or podcaster, is going to be unfair with certain people, that I should go first, that I should talk about it most, and that I should be willing to um, kind of like put people who've been victimized in worse, maybe much worse ways behind me and take the arrows. And even like
Mm,
chivalry, like if there's a place, I mean, there's a lot of women who were victims of men, mostly men, um, both in like the family court kind of arena, as parents, or sometimes in this other area, like with especially with actors and different people. That were child victims. So then one of the things I feel like I should do is just to go in front and to confront the things. That was part of what I'm trying to do in the first place, in a real civil way. Um, so all of that
yeah.
means I need to I just basically keep them open. Occasionally, I think I block. I don't think I try not to block anyone. I think sometimes I have to just as a practical reason. Um, more often I'll mute them just so I don't get too sidetracked. But for the
Yeah.
most part, I'm like, come on, ask me anything. Ask me
Yeah.
anything about it. And the fact that it's deleted, that it's like I'm not like explained, I'm not distinguished, I'm not like even ripped apart. It's more like I'm just ad hominem, people say bad things about me with no evidence and then just
Right.
completely isolated, cut off, deleted. Um, I mean, for me, if somebody's smart, I kind of think of it too as like an intelligence test. If people don't care, they usually will still care if that people think they're smart. So if you want,
Yeah.
it's an intelligence test. Why? Why this interview? Why me? Why am I deleted? I'm not that big a deal and I'm not fighting with people. So then what is it? I mean, I'm curious
Yeah. You
myself.
literally came out and said, I don't attack survivors, and that
I
got you
don't.
all the attack.
I don't. And I don't. I mean, I'm curious myself. I don't know things for sure. I mean, why am I deleted? Why are all my relationships attacked? Why am I always in a position where I'm just fighting for relevance or to stay alive? And I'm not sure. I mean, I know that it has to do with big politics. I know that it also has to do with the university and the reputation of it, has to do with real estate, has to do with the courts and corruption there, has to do with Wendy Miller. But what's the proximate reason or reasons for this? I mean, my best guess with Emma specifically is it has to do with that Dave Menn congressional election because of the timing. But even that, maybe it has to do with the Apple Computers co-founders. I mean, I don't know. I'm
Yeah,
curious
I mean,
myself.
so you didn't really know so much about Madison Claire's story, but like if you two were to have connected instead of
Yeah,
that time frame having, you know, she was platformed by Emma right around the same time you were deplatformed by Emma. So that created a
right,
diversion amongst any of the whistleblowers trusting you. And I felt that too on my
right,
side. I wasn't able to connect with her because of that. And so that's interesting. But her story and yours, it's a big what if. Because at that same time frame, had you guys discussed and you randomly brought up on Emma's podcast that you had this picture with, or the Wozniak connection, and she's talking about the Jobs connection, that is a big
right.
deal that
Yeah, and I
people would have
mean,
paid attention to. And we don't know what would have happened from it. We don't know what would have come of it if you guys would have talked about anything or come up with any dots. Who knows? And we can't know now, unfortunately.
right.
Um,
The
but it's
first
just a
thing,
what if.
yeah, I mean, that was basically all I knew about Madison Claire's story was that it had to do with Steve Jobs and that I couldn't talk to her because I was disconnected from it, even though in my own history, and I hadn't even published anything about that. I don't know that I ever even mentioned it. That, as a child, as a 15-year-old, I was asked to exhibit at a Big Apple event um,
Wow.
way back in the day, 1983, way back
And then
when.
you were in the paper for it, right? They wrote you up.
Well, fortunately there was an article in the paper about it because then it's a receipt. And that's
Yeah.
about that's probably as good as it goes. A local newspaper publishing. I mean, I think it carried over to another page, so it isn't super substantial or in depth, but
With a
it was.
picture.
Yeah, I mean, there's picture, there's an article, there's it extends to another page, several paragraphs. It's also, I don't know if you saw it, but it's on the front page of its section, and and
Yeah.
next to it is an article about Patton State Hospital that
I
Allie
saw
talks
that.
about
I
so
thought
much.
that was
Isn't
interesting.
that isn't that wild that it would be in the same paper
Yeah.
at the same time? Yeah. And
Well,
I
that's
mean,
like my birth paper has Mingley on the cover. So like how does
man,
that
that's
happen?
that's crazy. Yeah, so it's like it's we don't know, but the only thing I knew about Madison Claire's is that her interview was really close in proximity to mine. I had to go back and see the actual dates. Um, and then the other thing was that she mentioned Steve Jobs. So, I mean, I didn't think like, I wonder if that has anything to do with me. I thought immediately Steve Jobs, Apple, Steve Wozniak, the US Festival, the presentation, the newspaper article, all of that. So all of that would have been if it hadn't been for what Emma did, I would have been an admin. I would have been in the chat and in the conversation, and I would have mentioned it. I would have said, "Hey, you hear something?" And it wouldn't have been a big deal. It wouldn't have been like an effort to try to get close to this other, victim survivor. It would have been to say, "Hey, here's some information. Maybe this is something. Maybe it's not."
That's the way it was at the time. So when I first got into that community, it was because of a couple of different memories that went viral, and I saw everybody commenting, and people were sharing information, picking up dots out of it, and then sharing their own information on their page and
Mhm.
picking up dots out of it. And it was a big collaborative, let's put our story together thing.
Right.
And there was a very strange something that like cut it all in half, and now it's a very strange community. I don't even know how to describe it. I call it the most toxic survivor community on the planet, but I don't know what else to describe it as. But it's not
Yeah.
picking up pieces for stories anymore. It's alignment. It's like Survivor the TV show. Let's make alliances and let's see who can get booted off the island. And that's kind of,
Right.
shitty.
Yeah, no, and I mean, I think so. Then I think the question would be, or a good question would be, well, why? Why go out, get all these testimonies, build a community around it, then do a hard pivot, start dropping F-bombs on anyone who, says anything, fight,
Yeah.
marry a former assassin,
Well,
it was supposed to be the safest place on the internet for survivors. And then it becomes something that's entirely different, and it's a brand and a machine. And it's like takes this really aggressive approach that wasn't a part of what it was originally. And so then, like, why? What happened? What's the
it's
difference?
actually
Was that
dangerous for survivors.
was that the plan all along? Or was the plan to, like, just to do exactly what was stated, build the safest place on the internet for survivors and tell these stories that really did deserve a platform, and then it
How
got
is it safe?
infiltrated or something? Well, I mean, it did. I mean, maybe it was never safe, but it was presented as safe.
That's what it
And there
was
was
presented as, but I don't understand how it was. You think they're on public search terms, public YouTube, public social media. There's no law enforcement working with it. Oh, you tell this story, we're going to investigate and get some jurisdiction, covered. We're going to get some justice done.
right.
There was none of that. It was just tell all the details on the internet for searchability purposes, and then you're open for all the attacks. Hopefully you get some support in my comments, but otherwise, like, why was it safe? And then
Yeah,
a lot
maybe
of
it never
the
was.
things, like, I know when that whole thing blew up and they were yelling stuff back and forth, one of the things that was said was that, you're bringing killers into the network. To
Yeah,
me,
great.
because I'm
Somebody said that
connecting
to
with
you?
they said that to me because I'm connecting and platforming you by not disowning you because Elizabeth Loftus. That means I'm bringing killers into the network. That was physically said to me. And I'm sitting here like, wait a minute, we're on a public X is where you're saying this to me. We're
Right.
on a public chat. You speak in public on YouTube. You share clips of your YouTube thing all over other public places, and I'm supposed to believe that this horrible person named Elizabeth Loftus, that's just the destruction of all humanity, doesn't know how to Google search unless I put it on X. That
Yeah.
doesn't make sense to me.
No, it
Like,
doesn't make
you're
sense.
publishing it, so it's public. Anybody can now go find it. All the perpetrators can now go find it. All the cops who want to find something to investigate and go find justice can go find your interview now,
If I
except they
hadn't,
can't find Brad's because it was deleted.
yeah, and I mean, and the only reason anyone even knows about that is because I mentioned it, and I mentioned it because it's relevant. But that would be like, I mean, she's basically my colleague via my ex-wife, or a different way of putting it is my ex-wife was her colleague,
Right.
and and we both live in the same neighborhood. But how's that any different from Emma's in business with Snoop Dogg?
Right.
Or their
Right.
colleagues in the
Right.
cannabis business, right? But I'm
Or
not,
any of the alliances they've made that are known to be not good for survivors to be around.
and even that, like when I pointed out, I'm like, you're not explaining this one thing. You published 10 pictures, but you didn't publish this one. That's different from, I'm saying that she's, hiding stuff. I'm not hiding anything. I'm saying, let's talk about it. Let's hash it out, you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
She's saying,
Yeah.
let's not, talk about
Let's
hash.
not look there. Let's not
Right.
look there. Let's block
Exactly.
that. Let's keep that completely out of our field of vision.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
So
that's the
then,
thing. Like, they didn't go after you and say, "Oh, well, he's done this and I feel this way now, but his information blah blah blah." They didn't give you any credit. It went from promoting, platforming, please be an admin, please come on and help the women because we need strong men to talk. Please
right,
do this. Thank you so much. You're an awesome person. Thank you so much to
right,
stop harassing me. That's a
exactly.
contradiction. That's a very
It
big
totally,
contradiction.
yeah, it doesn't make sense. And I should say, I'm aware that there are some survivors, maybe even some who've been on our show before, probably most haven't, who see what's going on and actually do, in fact, see it, understand what I'm talking about. So I do know you just don't really see it because it's like you can't see the negative. You can't see the thing that didn't happen or that's not there.
Right.
So I am grateful for that. But the other thing I would say is I think so if you really wanted to know what was going on, if you were really coming after the truth, if you were like wanted to know what's going on, not just like interpersonal problems or gossip or even about this show that we're talking about, but just in general, like the big environment of it, then
Right.
the fact that what happened around our relationship and then my interview and now how it was deleted and then how it and how I've been treated ever since, I think that is way more information. It's way more valuable as what's really going on than maybe any single interview. Definitely more than my interview itself is. I mean, my interview says certain things about, my experience, like growing up, what happened on campus, a little bit about Hollywood, a little bit about Wendy Miller and some other things. I mentioned Ally Carter in it, but it touches on some things. It doesn't really go into detail. Some of it might be a little bit rambling. It's a lot of information. So it's got some use, but it's limited. But the fact that all of that was said and then what happened with it, the way that it was deleted, there's something in it or there's something about me that people don't want to get publicized. And
Yeah.
so for me, that affects me. It affects me directly. It basically tells me I'm in danger, but it tells me things. But for somebody else looking at it, maybe they don't care about me, and that's fine. I don't really care about it at all, about the individuals in my case. Even still, if you were really trying to figure out what was going on, so say you're trying to figure out if the things that people are disclosing about MK Ultra are real, if this what the survivors are saying is true, if there's something that has to do with child acting or Full House or UC Irvine specifically, or these Democrat politicians that they're launching from, the faculty housing there, or any number of things, then the fact that I was platformed, I was promoted, and then I was deleted and defamed and isolated. I mean, I would say, why? Why that one? Because there are other testimonies that are gripping. They seem more important, they seem more urgent, and some of them are also documented, but they're not deleted. So why this one? And then I think there's an answer. I have ideas. I don't know for sure what the answer is. I have an idea around where it is.
And the answer they give doesn't make sense.
The answer, well, yeah, how do you understand the answer given? Because I think I understand it, but like what's the official narrative for why Emma deleted the interview?
From my understanding, they both say because you're dangerous to the network. They've
Right.
protected the network from your information.
Yeah, that was how I understood it.
Which is why I say it would be much more valuable for the survivor community if that's the case. And I've watched your whole interview and I
Hmm.
learned a lot about you and what to ask you from that
Hmm.
interview. So it'd be much more valuable if they were like, this is the interview. This is what I've learned is wrong now.
Right.
Instead of just deleting it, if that's the case, if we're protecting people from the information, which
Right.
she has a lot of information on her podcast that is dangerous, disgusting, bad, gross,
Right.
all kinds of things.
Yeah.
So what is it that's in yours that's so
I know, right?
dangerous
Yeah. I mean,
that
Pam
survivors
Bondi
can't even hear it
Pam Bondi was protecting people from the Epstein files.
by redacting? Yeah.
Yeah, or
Yeah.
just not releasing some of them because, we don't want to traumatize people or we want to protect them. I mean, what does it say? What does it say to victims, survivors, whistleblowers, researchers, the general public that she thinks so little of them that she feels like as gatekeeper, she needs to just delete it? I mean, it really is treating survivors as infants, people who come forward and tell you these stories. And then she, of all people, is going to sit there and say, you know what, I'm going to protect you because you're not a big enough adult to do it yourself. These people who've
And
gone through
that's
everything that they've gone through.
exactly. But I'm going to protect you by deleting information, not protect you by
Hmm.
showing you what's been said where, how it's wrong, what I've found that's right, where there's resources that are right. But I'm going to delete information so you can't see it. I'm such a
Yeah,
protector. And that doesn't make sense to me because if we did that anywhere else, if we were like, Bill Gates just deleted all of his accounting because he's protecting us from what happened.
right,
I'm sorry, what? There's hiding something there, you know? Oh, UCI just deleted all of their records from this to protect you from what would have found out.
right. Yeah, I mean, it doesn't make sense.
That's not how that's, yeah. And what was it? Was it Sidney Gottlieb? Who was it that deleted all the MK Ultra files in the 70s to protect us from what we didn't want to know what happened?
Right.
So
Yeah,
I
how'd
don't
that
know. I
work
don't
out?
think it's protection. Yeah.
Yeah, that was Helms. I think that was
Odd.
Richard Helms, is the guy who
Thank you. I'm like,
said that.
that's not the right name. But yeah,
Yeah.
because if there's information that survivors needed to hear, people needed to hear, whistleblowers, humans needed to hear that got deleted. I mean,
Yeah.
let's put the audio clip up. Let people listen to this for themselves.
Flash the logo, you drink the Kool-Aid. Mind on mute, it's just how you do. Monarch scripts in an Instagram spell. Smile for the brand while you're locked in a cell. I don't need your nod or your fragile dates. I'm here for the mess, the glitches, the bitches. Marketing's the leash, and I broke off mine. Let's hash it